All right, well, good afternoon. It is the 26th of January at about 3:30 in the afternoon. It's unseasonably warm for January. You can see I've got shorts on and it's kind of clear blue skies as well. But the reason we're doing this is for a completely different reason. I'm actually going to be doing a road trip. Now, this is something which I've seen a few other people on YouTube and social media do, and we thought we'd give it a shot. We may never do it again, but who knows? Now, this is the first road trip of this kind that I've done in years, like over 3 years. It doesn't feel like that because part of that's because of the pandemic, right? But this is the first time that I'm going to be going on a road trip without my wife, Sarah Ann. She's currently got the camera behind you, but I will have to be fending for myself for over a week. What will I be doing on this road trip? Well, we'll be taking the trusty car all the way down to the Isle of Wight. And one of the things that we're going to do is a whole load of live videos. I've got all my fossil tools in there because we've got great fossils down on the Isle of Wight. We'll be doing a number of live videos, but we will also be filming, or I will be filming rather myself, sort of selfie stick style, some of our trips around the island, some of the geology, some of the archaeology, and as well as these live videos, we'll also be putting these up on YouTube and on Facebook at the end of every day, exploring a bit more of the geology and so on and so forth. What exactly are we doing? Come with me around here. Okay, maps. Here's the UK. Come up so you can see it. We are based around there, near Oswestry in Shropshire. Down there is the Isle of Wight. So we've got a fair distance to kind of drive from Oswestry down to the Isle of Wight. We're going to be going from Lymington, which is here, rather than the main one, which is Portsmouth. We'll be driving down. There's some great geology on the way, so I'm going to try and stop off and show you some of the geology as we go. We're going to get on the ferry tomorrow afternoon over to the Isle of Wight. I'll be staying down on the bottom of the island like this, and we're going to be travelling around the Isle of Wight, having a look at some of the fabulous geology down there. On the way back, we're also going to stop off on the Jurassic Coast. There's Lyme Regis just there. This whole Jurassic Coast is absolutely beautiful for the area. We're also finding out some information to see if we can do a creation research fossil hunting retreat there for several days later on in the year. So that's where we're kind of going on the road. Let's actually have a quick look at the Isle of Wight itself. I've got my wonderful geology map here. Let's get this spread out. Come and have a look at this. Lots of great colours. Probably doesn't mean a huge amount to everybody straight away, but to geologists like me, it means a great deal. Basically what we're looking at are two main types of rocks. You've got the greens and the blue rocks down here, and you've got the dark browns and the oranges up here. These are two very, very different types of rock and rock groups. Down the bottom here, we have all of the flood rocks. This is actually, a lot of this is known as the Wealden Flood Basin, even by secular geologists. There's lots and lots of chalk down here, there's lots of Cretaceous rocks, there's lots and lots of dinosaurs. In fact, this whole stretch of coast down here, from up here near Compton, all the way down here to Whale Chine, is known as the Dinosaur Coast. Dinosaur footprints, dinosaur bones, all the rest. And you've also got these Wealden flood deposits that come out over at Sandown and Yaverland just round here. You've got lots of other geology in the middle here as well. Great big chalk cliffs. This is the chalk cliffs that come all the way over here. You can see the famous needles up at this end of the map. But then on this top bit of the map, all this kind of, you know, browns and sort of the slightly darker coloured rocks, greys and sort of oranges and whatnot. This is what we would call Ice Age, glacial deposits and other kind of slumping clays that have dumped down into a great big basin and buried lots of fossils along there as well. Particularly over on this side of the island, this whole stretch, you've got Yarmouth here and Boldmore, great big Ice Age fossils from there. We've dug out some fabulous fossil skulls and lots of other things as well, all the way up to here along Thorness and up towards Cowes. Great fossils all along here. So I'll be travelling all over. I'll be seeing some friends as well, and we're going to be looking at some of their fossils. We're going to be having a look at some of the dinosaurs. We're going to be having a really great time over on the Isle of Wight, and that should be really, really quite fun. So what we're going to be doing is a few live videos like we do here today, as well as actually filming some of our travel, some of the things that we can't do live or stuff like that, briefly editing it together so you can kind of see not only me on my travels, but also some of the geology that we're looking at, some of the fossils that we found, some of even the archaeology, because the Isle of Wight is so rich in its archaeology and Roman and what would be commonly referred to as prehistoric archaeology and everything else as well. There's some fabulous stuff there. So I'm going to be on my own, so the camera work may be interesting, but yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of a bachelor's road trip, as well as a chance to dig down into some geology and share all of my travels and experience with you. So we're starting early tomorrow morning, so we'll probably do a live video then. Tune in. We may do some live videos throughout the rest of the day, but in particular watch for the end of day video which we'll put out, which is sort of a pre-film brought all together throughout the day. And also join us on Friday evening. Creation Conversations will actually be in the hotel where I'll be doing this from. And so I'll have to bring you some of my finds, and I may even put up the video for that day on Creation Conversations as well. So join me then, catch you later, goodbye and God bless, and enjoy the road trip. Folks, this is it. We're headed out very shortly. I was struck last night with quite a serious bout of insomnia. Some of you who follow me know that late last year, I had a fairly serious health issue, health scare. And although I'm a lot better than I was then, one of the sort of repercussions of what I had is that I will occasionally get some really strong bouts of insomnia, and last night was one of them. So I didn't get much sleep, but much time for prayer, much time for reading and catching up on work. The downside is that today's drive now feels a little bit daunting. Not quite as daunting as when I first woke up, but there we go. We're all packed, we're all ready to head out. We're going straight down to Leamington and then over to the Isle of Wight. I'm going to try and stop off at a place called the New Forest. It's a place I've never actually been to, but wanted to go to for a very long time. Some fabulous wildlife there, and in particular of interest to me is the fungus, but I'm slightly later heading out than I had originally intended, and I've got a ferry to catch at the right time. So join me as I travel. I'll try and do another couple of live videos today as we're going down, just short little clips like this, but I'll also be gathering footage as I travel by myself, and that'll go out into the video later on this evening. So pray for me, safe travels. We've got an exciting trip coming ahead of us, and yeah, I'm all ready to go. So jump aboard and join me on this rather exciting road trip all the way down to the Isle of Wight, of course, looking for dinosaurs and fossils, and then the Jurassic Coast and everything else in between. So catch you later, guys. Keep watching. All right, hello again. It is 12:45. We are halfway there. We are in a services because I needed the facilities and I also wanted some food. And this is when I found out that I had forgotten my lunch. I have made some wonderful lunch and it's sitting back at home, so never mind, I've had to grab some lunch while I'm out. I've got some yogurt and I've got some fruit, and that'll do me nicely until we get down there. Alright, well, what I wanted to do while we'd stopped is just tell you a bit about some of the geology that I'd seen on the way down here so far, and what I'm going to be filming in order to put up a little bit later. One particular type of rock that I've consistently seen as we've driven down here, and we're sort of halfway there at the moment, is wonderful red sandstone, in particular the old red sandstone. It's a Triassic rock, and we passed one particular place which wasn't too far from where I live, called Nestcliff. I've got a picture of Nestcliff up on my tablet here. It's an absolutely beautiful place. You can see it's got some gorgeous scenery from the top there, as well as this wonderful red sandstone. In fact, it's a very famous place. Here's part of that cliff again, and you can actually see there's a little highwayman's hideout there. It's quite famous for the legends that are surrounding it and the highwaymen who used to live there and everything else as well. Now, Old Red Sandstone is quite interesting because it actually runs all the way down through the country. It's found up near where I was, where I started from today, and we're still seeing bits of it turning up as we travel down. Old Red Sandstone, well, if you want a little quick history of the word sandstone, it's a stone that's made from sand, that's first and foremost, right? But what do those words actually mean? Well, stone refers to hard, something that is hard, and you can see this all throughout the UK and all throughout Europe. It's an old Anglo-Saxon or Dutch word. It means hard. It's where we get our words like limestone from, lim being glue and stone being hard, and so it was the hard thing that you made glue out of, right? Hence cement. Sandstone's slightly different to limestone though. Stone means hard. Sand refers to the size of the sediment. Sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary means hung in space or, suspended. Most of the time, this material, this sediment, these grains are suspended in a medium, whether that be water or wind or something else. They're moved into position. And sand refers to the size of the grains of sediment. So you have things like clay and mud, which are very, very fine, moving all the way up to your big boulders and down to your cobbles and then down to your sand. So sand is sort of medium to fine grained material. And you find this sandstone all over the UK. It's part of the Triassic. And you can go and get some really good geology from there. In fact, it actually links back to one of the creation conversations. In fact, I think it was last week's creation conversations, because it talks about the way that water flows and carries this sediment and deposits these sediment as it flows. And in particular, we were doing experiments with sand. And yes, some of the geology that you can see really does match up to that. So go check out that creation conversations. Make sure you join us for our creation conversations tomorrow as well, this week's creation conversations. I'm going to have my lunch and carry on down the road now. See you next time, hopefully somewhere around the New Forest. All right, there's been a change of plan. I was supposed to be going to the New Forest, but that didn't work out. I didn't have enough time, I was too late, and I couldn't find anywhere that was quick to pull over. So I wasn't able to do that. But not to worry, I'm now on the boat. You can see the New Forest sort of behind me here, and a gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful scene. It's like something tropical almost. It's absolutely, absolutely beautiful. It's just absolutely fabulous. Look at that. So we're on the boat. It's now 4:30, something like that. Maybe a bit less than that, about 20 past. We're due to get into the Isle of Wight in about 20 minutes or so, if that. We're leaving behind us Lymington and the New Forest. We're heading over to the Isle of Dinosaurs. So how wonderful is that? We've done well. We've got here on time. That was my main concern. And so yeah, we've just now got to go and do some exploring, get checked in, get some food, everything else. So good stuff. And it's an amazing day. I mean, I started off this morning, it was fairly bright, but low in the sky and sort of blinding you as you drive. Now as we go forward in the day, it gets really sort of bleak looking, cloudy, rain. We did have quite a bit of rain at one point on the way down. Now look at it, it's just, I mean, the sea is dead calm and it's got this gorgeous, gorgeous sunset happening behind me. Absolutely beautiful, almost something tropical. So praise the Lord for that. It's being out and amongst nature that really does make you feel closer to the Lord in one way. It certainly helps me anyway, and just seeing what his creation is like and what his creation has done is just mind-blowing sometimes. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to spend some time in the Forest of Dean. It's got so much wildlife. The biodiversity there is incredible. Not Forest of Dean, New Forest, sorry. Very tired, as you gathered from earlier. I wanted to spend time there because the biodiversity is amazing. But hopefully on the way back. But just look at that. Absolutely wonderful. I'll catch in with you later, guys. Alright, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Just getting ready to leave. And Unfortunately, I had a sort of a serious bout of insomnia in the night. Sort of a leftover bit of my health issues. Most of you probably know who've been following us for a while. I had a serious health scare last year, and one of the results of that, although I'm a lot improved in myself generally, and praise the Lord for that, one of the downsides to it is that I do occasionally get these bouts of insomnia, and there's no real rhyme, reason, cure or warning that it's going to happen. So it does make the drive today feel slightly daunting, but we're feeling good. It meant there was lots of extra time for prayer and for reading and thinking and everything else, but yeah, it should be good. It's just started raining. The weather is nowhere near as nice as it was yesterday, and I'm getting ready to head out. Alright folks, this is it. Off we go, down to the Isle of Wight on our road trip, down to through the New Forest and onto the ferry, which is our agenda today. Although first on the agenda is get some fuel, because I'm nearly empty. This isn't actually my car, by the way, or the ministry's car. This is borrowed. It's actually my mother-in-law's car, and she's kind enough to let me use it every so often. It's actually worked out quite well, because we sort of still need a van for the ministry, but this is just about making do for this time if we don't have anything too big ministry-wise, because it was actually converted for a wheelchair, and so the back of it is got quite a bit of space, certainly enough for a road trip like this, so I can take all my luggage, as well as all my fossil tools, as well as hopefully bring a good amount of fossils back with me, but we'll obviously keep you updated on that as we go. So exciting stuff. Okay, geology, because we're going to be following a geological sequence all the way down the country this morning. Now we are just approaching a place which I know fairly well around here. It's called the Nestcliff Services, and Nestcliff itself is a rather wonderful geological formation. It's a big hill that sticks up out in the middle here, and it is composed entirely of old red sandstone. The cliff part comes from the fact that there is a sheer cliff there. It has lots of legends connected to highwaymen and everything else that used to hide in the caves in the cliff that they used to carve out. You can still go and see these caves and the steps and everything. It's a fascinating place, beautiful scenery from the top as well. Okay, old red sandstone. It's part of the Triassic rocks, so named because there are 3 distinct rocks in it. And we're going to be following the old red sandstone and these Triassic rocks all the way down the country, because they run from up here in Shropshire all the way down, as we will travel through them, through Telford, and going sort of slightly, we're heading south, but we're kind of going sort of southeast for a lot of the time. But they go southeast and they go directly south as well, because they turn up at Bristol. And they go even further down. There's this Nestcliff out there, absolutely beautiful, sticking itself up out in the middle of nowhere. So we're going to be following some of this old red sandstone, and I'll be telling you a little bit about it, and a little bit about what it is, what's significant about it, and also a little bit about how it formed. It's very, very murky today. I mean, welcome to England. Yesterday I was in my shorts and it was beautifully sunny. Today it's murky. The sun is sometimes peeking through, and when it does, it's very low and very bright and it blinds you. And when it's not, like now, it's just pretty murky and pretty dull and not particularly nice in the slightest. So we could be in for an exciting trip today. Right, petrol. diesel as it actually is. I did make that mistake once, because when I learned to drive, my first real driving experience was in Australia, but of course I wasn't paying for the fuel. And then when I came back to the UK, my first vehicle was actually a van, and so I'd been used to putting diesel in the vehicle all the time, and then when the van was in for repairs and I got given a courtesy car, the first thing I did was go to fill it up, and filled up a tiny little Ford Ka with diesel somehow. Don't ask me quite how I managed that, but I did. Oh, fuel is expensive. Very, very expensive. Right, how do we get out of here? Now directly ahead of me is the Wrekin, home of the Wrekin Giants. The Wrekin is a large hill near Telford with a complex geological structure. The legend says that it was formed when a giant dropped a shovel load of soil there after being foiled by a clever shoemaker. We've just driven through a cut in the side of the road. The Wrekin is just over there. And there's sandstone here, old red sandstone, the Permo-Triassic old red sandstone. So the Wrekin itself is an incredibly complicated mix of geology. It's got Precambrian volcanic rocks, it's got Cambrian dikes, volcanic dikes that come up through it, it's got Carboniferous and Permian and Permo-Triassic rocks, all kind of mixed together. It's a wonderful bit of geology. But we're talking about the old red sandstone, and the red sandstones that come up and down through here, the Permo-Triassic, Permian-Triassic sandstones. Now, before we even get into information about them, we've got to ask, what is a sandstone? Well, it is a stone made of sand. It's as easy as that. Okay, let's break it down. Stone means hard. A lot of towns are named after stone. Stonestein, Steinstein, it's all the same word. It all means hard. Sand actually refers to the size of the sedimentary particles. So sediment means to suspend. Sediments are usually suspended in a medium, whether that medium be water or wind or something like that, and they've been moved into position to form layers and layers of new rock. Now, sand refers to the size of these particles. So you've got mud and clay, which is very, very small particles, all the way up to conglomerate, which are great big boulders and cobbles and stuff like that, right? Sandstone refers to the size. It's a semi-fine to coarse-grained stone. So the sandstone is a stone made up of sand. And of course it's red. Where does the red come from? It comes from iron. It is a rusty, sandy rock. Well, we are in chalk country now. You can tell that by the sort of the rolling hills. They'd be referred to as downs often. The chalk downs, which is a reference to the chalk, the limestone rock that they're made up of. So it's amazing as you're going on these road trips, you know, we're covering a few hundred miles, and the incredible diversity of geology and landform that there is in a relatively small area like the UK is quite astonishing, really. And it's very, very beautiful. It's lovely to just, you know, drive, you know, take in the surroundings, a little bit of music on, maybe a, you know, podcast or a teaching or something. It's quite delightful. But we're actually not too far away from the New Forest, and in order to get to Lymington, the ferry, we have to drive straight through the New Forest. So I thought I'd try and find somewhere to pull off and have a quick little look about, because it is well worth seeing. So let's go. Alright folks, well, there's been a change of plan. I was obviously going to stop off at the New Forest. I now can't, or I decided that I couldn't. The road went directly through the New Forest, but it was quite heavily regulated there, so you couldn't just pull over or anything like that. You had to go into the official car parks, which I didn't think I had time for or was worth the money for the short amount of time I'd spend there. And to find the little sort of car parks off of the side of the road, you had to travel quite far off of my journey route and head into the New Forest a bit more, which I didn't think I had time for either. We're still technically in the New Forest. There is some we're right on the outskirts, but certainly you'll be able to see a very, very good view of it as we head onto the ferry and head across. Well, we didn't make it to the New Forest, which you can sort of see behind me. We're on the boat. Not enough time basically, and no parking space, but look at this scenery behind me. Absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. It's just wonderful. You know, being out in nature in the slight wilds like this, it does make you feel closer to God in a way, just being amongst his creation. And you look at his majesty and might and see all that he's done. It's a bit mind-blowing, really. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to be in the New Forest, because it's a great place for wildlife, great place for biodiversity. But, yeah, maybe on the way back. But I'm sure glad that I didn't miss this sunset, and I'm sure glad I didn't miss the boat. So let's get over to the Isle of Wight, Dinosaur Isle, and go get checked into the hotel and get exploring. Alright, there we go. That's it. We are in the Isle of Wight. Oh dear. Alright. It's been an interesting last night and this morning. A lot of things have gone wrong, mostly technological. My software and computer is playing up. You may have noticed we tried to get one of the videos up last night, and I didn't realise it had cut it off at the end before I uploaded it, which was like at 1:30 in the morning. So I, this morning, have been trying to get my computer working. The software is not. I finally managed to get some of the software working, but it says by, uninstalling and reinstalling, but now it says it needs various driver updates and the graphics card doesn't work and everything else. So I spent all morning trying to do that. We're just set everything uploading. There's not a lot else that I can do right now, so never mind. I was just said it's failed. Oh dear. My computer itself, my laptop, is also not working brilliantly. It's overheating and cutting itself out. The battery doesn't work. It doesn't click. You can't click on anything. You have to sort of tap it, and it also electrocutes you now, which is also fun. So pray much, because we've got creation conversations happening later, and that's gotta happen. So there we go. Fun. But it's in times like this that I want to read you something that I read for devotions this morning, Psalm 47. Just have a listen to this. Oh, clap your hands, all you peoples. Shout to God with the voice of triumph. For the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth. He will subdue the peoples under us and the nations under our feet. He will choose our inheritance for us. The excellence of Jacob he loves. God has gone up with a shout, the Lord with the sound of a trumpet. Sing praises to God, sing praises to our King, sing praises. For the Lord is King over all the earth. Sing praises with understanding. The Lord reigns over the nations. God sits on his holy throne. The princes of all the people have gathered together, the people of the God of Abraham. For the shields of the earth belong to God. He is greatly exalted. You know, when things go wrong, and this is fairly little compared to what could have gone wrong, right? You know, it's frustrating, it's annoying, it means that I didn't get that much sleep last night either trying to fix everything, but God's got a plan for this. And we're going to continue to endeavour to get these live videos out. We're going to continue to endeavour to try and get this kind of content out to you, especially the end of day videos. I'm going to keep gathering the footage regardless, right? But yeah, we'll keep pushing forward and see. Where are we going today? We're actually going to the Dinosaur Coast. We're going to go down to Brook Bay and Hanover Point. Some great dinosaur footprints and everything else there. We're heading towards low tide, so we should get down there fairly soon. So keep watching these live videos. Pray much for the technology, especially for tonight for Creation Conversations. And also pray that we can get this technology replaced, because we want to keep putting this stuff out, but it's getting harder and harder to do it on the kind of equipment that we've got at the moment. So pray much. Thank you for your support. Catch you later. All right then, hopefully everything is working. Yeah, that looks like it's good. Great stuff. Well, we made it down to the Isle of Wight, and we also made it down here onto the beach. Now let's see if I can turn my camera around quickly. So that's where we've came from, over there. And you can see this beautiful, beautiful cliff face on here. I mean, it's a gorgeous day, by the way. Just absolutely look at it. It's absolutely wonderful. Right, geology. All the way down there, you can see jutting out a little bit where you're heading down towards Atherfield Point. It's just past this bit where the dinosaur beds start. So all of this is all dinosaur beds. These are all part of the Wealden flood deposits. Now, the Wealden flood deposits are known that even by secular people, because the evidence for flooding is so abundant, and we'll talk about some of that evidence in just a moment, because we've got some great evidence as we go. You're carrying on down the dinosaur beds, and then all of a sudden you start to see the chalk come into view. So the chalk continues, and right down there on the end tip is where you end up with the needles. Now, why have I brought you here? Well, I first came to this particular spot right out here several years ago, but I've only managed to get back here only a couple of times since then. The reason why, normally this little bit here, which you can see, is completely flooded. Now, I'm keeping an eye because the tide is coming in quite quickly now, so I've got to actually make sure I can get back over there. There's just about enough rocks to hop over, but you've got to be very careful. I may be getting my feet wet. So let me run through this quickly. The reason why I wanted to come over to this bit is because there are dinosaur footprints over here. Now, there's lots of dinosaur footprints over there, and we'll try and show you some, but these are quite special. You see, the dinosaur footprints over there are what we call cast footprints. In other words, the dinosaur is stomped, and new sediment has come and filled that footprint in, and then it's eroded away so you can go and see those footprints, right? It's not where the dinosaur actually walked. These fossils, footprints right here, are exactly where the dinosaur walked. So let's see if we can take and show you some. So they're kind of over this way a little bit, on these flat areas. Let's head over this way. Now, you can see actually where one of these footprints was actually cut out. Now, other than being highly illegal, it was also very, very silly, because this stuff is just mud, basically. So as soon as you remove it, it dries out. It's actually the wet that's preserving it. So as soon as you remove it, it just disintegrates. But that's where one was cut out just there. But here, we actually have our complete dinosaur footprint. So you can kind of see the three toes. We've got a toe there, there, and there. 1, 2, 3. That's where the dinosaur actually physically walked. You can see how it indents rather than sticks out. Now, this is actually part of a trackway. So the first footprint went there, the second footprint went to where it was cut out, there's the third footprint just there, the fourth footprint has been almost completely eroded away just down there, there's the fifth one, and then it disappears for a little bit, but it shows back up where that puddle of water is over there. So you've got a whole series of footprints. This is an entire dinosaur trackway where a dinosaur actually walked. So really exciting stuff there. But let's head back this way. Sorry about the backlighting from the sun there, but there's not a lot I can do because I want to bring you over this way to show you some of the evidence of this flooding. And I'm getting more and more conscious of the fact that the tide is coming in and I'm going to get some wet feet. But never mind about that. I want to show you this. It's absolutely spectacular. Now, I've known for a long while that somewhere around here you had a fossil log jam. Never actually been able to find it properly. But come and see what I found down here. Look at that rather spectacular fossil tree log. You see where it's come out of the cliff just there? You see lots more coal down there? This is part of the fossil log jam. Now, we know a lot about log jams in creation research. One of our museums is actually based on one in Jurassic Ark in Australia, right? But this is an exciting one to find here in the UK, and we want to lead some field trips to come out here. But let's just take you over here and show you some more of the logs that we found. It's a little bit adventurous, clambering over here. There we go. Right, lots and lots of wood material in here. Great stuff down there. Lots and lots of wood material in that bit over here. But come and have a look over here at these rather large logs. I mean, look at the size of this tree. Absolutely enormous. You can see the wood structure on there. So it's definitely fossil tree. You can see the wood on here. This would have been one tree. It would have joined up to this tree running down here. A huge tree. That's all been washed into position. There's another log just over there. Okay, what's the point? This is known as the Wealden deposit. The Wealden flood basin, to be precise. The reason why is because the evidence for flooding is abundant from so many different things, not just these logs that have washed into place, and they clearly have washed into place. It's a log jam, no doubt about it. In fact, I was looking at one of my old books, sort of just post-Victorian fossil books about these logs here. They're all pointing in a southwesterly position. So that's a massive indicator that it's actually been washed into position, no doubt about it. So there's a flood that's washed these into position. You've got the footprints, which have to be buried very quickly. I mean, you go walking down the beach, right? You leave your footprints behind. They get destroyed within, you know, the next tide, if not sooner. So in order to preserve footprints, you have to bury them really, really quickly. Also, the fact that in these cliffs here that you can see behind me, you have got dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are land animals. Buried with them are turtles. Buried with them are fish. Buried with them are giant trees. Now, you see, I studied paleobiology, and one of the things that I was taught in university was that what you do is you go to your rock face, and from that you work out what kind of an environment is represented in it. So, in other words, if you've got, you know, a large terrestrial environment, should all be large terrestrial creatures. If it's a marine environment, it should all be marine creatures. What we see in the real world is simply the opposite. It is just an enormous mess. Definitely a flood. So remember, if you find different environments all buried together, so you know, terrestrial like dinosaurs, tropical like these trees, and fish and everything buried together, you're definitely looking at a massive flooding event. Now, I've got to try and work my way across here. You could simply walk across this 5 minutes ago. Let's see if I can make my way across without getting too wet, because I don't actually have my Wellington boots on today. That's not too bad. There we go. Right. Let's see if we can find anything else down this side. So in a minute, I'd like to do another live video. The problem is, as soon as you get closer to the cliffs, you lose signal. But there's some great fossil footprints over there, which I'll hopefully be able to upload later on tonight in the main video that we put out. But hopefully you've enjoyed this little sort of live, on location dig around some of the fossils that you can find. Thank you very much for the donation as well, by the way. I've just seen that. Whoever sent that, thank you very much. Join us later on for Creation Conversations. Lord willing, that will all go ahead despite my technical issues. Sam's been very useful in helping me try and get through some of this tech stuff, as has my wife Sarah Ann, who does a lot of our media stuff anyway. So join us tonight for Creation Conversations. We're going to be talking a bit more about these rocks, particularly about where did the names come from, like Jurassic, Cretaceous. These are Cretaceous rocks, by the way, and I'm going to the Jurassic Coast later on in the week. We're going to have a little look at the history of geology, so that should be quite exciting. Catch you later, guys. First fossil find of the day, come and have a look. Here it is. It's a fossil shark fin spine. It would hold the fin in place. You can see it curves right round up here to the top. Beautifully preserved fossil. All trimmed up and ready to take home. Join us next time. Alright, well, we're down at Brook Bay. I mean, the day is just stunning. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful day for doing this. And we're looking for dinosaurs. Well, we've had our first major run of issues sort of last night heading to this morning, all technological. My computer is failing me. All of my software has crashed and I've had to uninstall and re-download all the software, and then the software said that there were various other problems that needed to be fixed, so I tried to fix that, got it working, but it still says the problems aren't being fixed, and it's working in the sense that I can pull everything up and begin to edit it, but it's not happy to export it. So last night I uploaded yesterday's video thinking it was all there, and it wasn't. It cut most of the end off, rather annoyingly. My computer also isn't very happy. It's overheating and cutting out. It needs to be plugged in, otherwise it will die. It's also electrocuting me if I touch certain parts of it, and it's very, 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 very slow. So pray much, because I don't really want a laptop to conk out on me, and pray that we get the funds so I can get a new one, because I don't know how much longer this is going to last. I've been working this morning. Hopefully we can get it finished and uploaded and sorted, and then I can get on with doing some proper live videos and then head out to the beach. So you see all of this shingle and cobbles. This is where you can find little rolled bits of dinosaur bone. Basically what happens is it comes out of the cliffs here and gets washed around, and that's where you can find it. Now these cliffs in particular are known as the Weld deposits, and they're known as the Weldon floodplain because the evidence of flooding is having formed these cliffs is so abundant. And let's see if we can find a fossil down here. It may not be a dinosaur bone, but let's just see what we can pick up. Oh, there's something. There we go. Just here. It's a bit of fossil wood. Would have probably been Araucaria, the monkey puzzle tree, or the southern conifer. You find them lots around here. They're living fossils, by the way. The Araucarias and the monkey puzzle trees. Lots of living fossils around here, and all buried extremely quickly. And all buried in a flood. And we'll talk about some of that evidence as we go. But down that way, there's Hanover Point, and down that way there are dinosaur fossil footprints. So we're going to go investigate down there. Okay, so we're now starting to come across some of our first examples of dinosaur footprints. They're quite worn, but there's one there. If we turn it around like that, you might just be able to pick out the three toes. There's another worn one just there. This is quite a nice one. There we go. Put it just like that. Beautiful. Let's see what else we can find in and around here. Lots of there's one down there as well. So you're starting to get these footprints come out of the cliffs here. So behind all of this clay, you've actually got some very, very large beds of sandstone. And this is where the dinosaurs walked. This is where they got their footprints infilled, and what's now actually being washed out of these cliffs here. Absolutely wonderful. Let's see what else we can find. Well, we've timed this beautifully because the tide is very, very low, which is exactly what we want. you can see that I'm heading away from the cliff out that way, because right out here is some footprints, dinosaur footprints, of where the dinosaurs actually walked. Let me explain. What we've been looking at so far have been where the dinosaurs have walked, and then a different type of sediment has come and infilled that footprint, and then that infilled footprint is what washes out to the cliff. So you're not actually looking where the dinosaurs walked, you're looking at a cast of a footprint, an infill. But out here we have the actual mould fossils, the places where the dinosaurs actually walked. We actually have a fossil trackway. So let's see if we can go and suss it out. Okay, so this is where the tide is normally. This big gulf, which you can see, there's the sea out there. This big gulf that you can see is what's normally filled with water. So you can get out to here on a relatively high, low tide. But you need a really low tide, spring tide, like it is now, in order to get properly across. That's probably our best shot over those rocks just down here. Right, I'm going to doing this obviously with a camera. There can be some quite deep water in there. Oh, here we go. There we go, made it. Lovely job. Right, it's up on this flat bit of rock. Now I've only been able to come over and see these about 3 or 4 times, despite having come over to the Isle of Wight many times. Because of my third main time coming to see these. Right, let's see if we can spot them. Well, I can see where one was cut out. You see this big square up here? That's where one was actually cut out of, not too long back. Here we go, here it is. Right there. Okay, what are we looking at? 1 footprint, 2 toe print, 3 toe prints. So you've got 1, 2, 3. If you get the angle right, you can see it a little bit clearer. Let's come around here. There we go. That's nice. So a dinosaur stepped there. We have another one just further back about there. So you can see he stepped there. Then he stepped out to where this one was cut out. And then there is your next one. There's a footprint there. Then he stepped over here somewhere, which looks like it's probably been filled in. But you can see the last one just out there. So you've actually got a dinosaur trackway that carries on because another footprint turns out just up there. So you've got a whole trackway of dinosaur footprints just walking across this bit here. So this is actually where the dinosaur walked. This whole trackway bit here, bum 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 bum. Now the last time I was here, I actually found out that there were another set of footprints that hadn't been, apparently hadn't been recorded before. I'm just trying to see if I can find it. I took photographs of them last time I was over here. The other thing which you also see out here are some fabulous fossil trees. And in fact, this whole area is known as a log mat. It's a gymnosperm log mat, so basically a pine tree. Again, most likely the southern conifers or the araucarias, and you can see them over here. Here's one of those giant trees. Just try and not get too wet here. Look at this. Huge tree. You can see where it's snapped off. Unfortunately, being far out here, you do get a lot of erosion that happens. But you can see this giant tree trunk where it's been sticking up out of the rock, and look at the angle it is. It's definitely a flood mat, but it's been shoved upwards. This has been buried very quickly. In fact, you can find flooded log mats like this all over the world, including at Jurassic Ark in Australia, in Creation Research's Outdoor Museum. But that's a beautiful, great big tree just there. You've got loads more plant debris. This is all fossil wood down here, and you can also see all this fossil wood in lines just along here. Huge amounts of fossil wood all washed into place. Oh, here's a nice bit, nice big log, look, just down here. There's another log just over here, another big log there. Let's have a look, see what else we can find over this way. It's great fun tracking these. In fact, they actually pointed out in one of the books that I read that they all follow a sort of a southeast direction. In other words, these have definitely got directional flow on them. Oh, there's a lovely big one. Look at that log there. Great big, huge log. Look at the size of that one. Absolutely enormous. More trees around here, look. Beautiful, great big fossil trees. All washed into place. That's a big one. Look at that one. That's huge. Huge, great big thing. All washed into place around here. Definitely a massive, catastrophic flood burial for sure. No doubt about it. Well, I think that's pretty much most of what's right over here. We found some cool dinosaur footprints, we found some wonderful fossil trees, definitely buried very quickly. Let's head back towards the cliffs and see if we can find some more footprints and see if we can find some more dinosaur bone. Alright, we found our first proper fossil. We've just been kind of trimming and chipping it all up. Here it is, just here. Let's get in close and tell you what it is. Well, here you can see it here. It's the spine of a fin of a shark. So you've got the shark's body would be down here, and this would be the fin. Come down like that, sort of holds the fin up in place. I'll have the muscles attached to it. So it's quite a nice little find. Very, very detailed. You can see how it kind of extends up here as well. So we'll need to take this back. I've been trimming all the rock down because it was a huge bit of rock. And I'll be trimming this down, taking this back and cleaning all out this part of here. So quite a nice find. Alright, well, we're down here at the Hampstead Heritage Coast, and just over here we can actually see the beginnings of Baldnor Cliff. Let's just turn the camera around. There we go. Right, so this is the beginnings of Baldnor Cliff. This is what we would call a post-flood deposit. It's been formed clearly by a catastrophe, but actually after Noah's flood. Why have I come here? Well, it's quite useful here because the sea is our greatest friend. There's the sea, and you can see all the cobbles, and then you can see all these shingle sort of layers. Okay, what's happened here is the sea has come up, the sea has washed out all of the fossils out of the clay, it's rolled them around a bit, and it's deposited them in a lovely straight row for us, all the way down here. Now, I've sort of set up down here. It's quite easy, really, to find fossils around here. All you need is, well, you don't technically need anything, it's how you do it, but I have one or two little things to help me out. I've got a nice little knee pad, because this is essential for preserving your knees. I also have a pair of gloves just down here, and all you simply do is, down on your hands and knees, start looking along, slowly scanning, seeing what you can find. Move yourself along a little bit and look for some fossils that have been washed out. Oh, I've just seen one. It's not on camera yet. See if you can spot it. I'll bring the camera up a little bit. Let's move it along. See if you can spot it. It's in the frame now. It's in the frame now. Let's get in a little bit closer. Do you see it just there? Oh, that's a lovely piece. Right, let's get this up into focus. Okay, what is this? This is a nice piece of alligator scute. Now, alligators have this hard armoured scute just underneath the skin, which actually protects them. These little holes are what the skin actually attaches themselves into. You can see some of the bone structure in there. That's quite nice. There's the flat side, which would be facing down inside of the alligator. And you've got this wonderful fossil alligator scute. All right, fossil alligator scute. Think about it for a moment. Alligators, well, it's remarkably warm here for January, but it's still pretty cold, you know. I wouldn't want to take my jumper off, and I am sort of wishing I'd brought a coat, because it was quite sunny when I started out. It's not quite as sunny now. There's still, though, no way that crocodiles and alligators could actually survive here today. What does that tell you about the climate of the past? Well, what it tells you is that when Baltimore Cliff was being laid down, was being deposited, when these creatures were living here, the climate was a lot warmer than it was today. And these aren't just the only fossils. If I bring you back over here for a second, I've been collecting fossils for about sort of 20 minutes or so now, and we've got quite a decent handful all ready. Let's just pull some out of my bag here. Turn the camera around. There we go. A nice handful of different things here. Turtle shells, some nice shells as well that have been pyrotised, some crocodile bits, a bit of leg bone, lots and lots of different fossils from lots and lots of tropical creatures. Tropical creatures means warm. You see, when you look at Earth's climate, one thing that you see for certain is that it used to be warm, and now it's gotten cool, and now it's warming back up again. You see that on a short-term cycle, like a few hundred-year cycle, and you see it on a long-term cycle, just like these fossils here. I mean, when these cliffs were being laid down, when these creatures were living here, it was very tropical. You had alligators, crocodiles, turtles, you had all sorts of different creatures like this, tropical creatures and subtropical creatures, all living together here in this area. Then a big catastrophe, probably something to do with the Ice Age, actually pushed all of this material, dumped it on top of these creatures and fossilised it. So you've got rapid catastrophic burial for sure, but you've got a warm climate before and then a great cooling, the Ice Age. And then it warms back up again and then it cools back down again. And then it warms back up again and then it cools back down, because you can trace this all throughout history. I mean, start here at the present day and work backwards, right? We're currently warming up. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt in anybody's minds that we're warming up. Whether we're warming up as fast as the media claims is another question, but the biggest one is what's causing it. Well, let's have a look at history. Is there a natural cycle that we can see? Yes, there is. It's warming up now, but just 200 years ago, we were in the middle of a little ice age, and it was much, much cooler. But skip forward a few more hundred years, or skip back rather a few more hundred years, and you end up with the medieval warm period, a global occurrence where you have a much, much warmer climate. Go back a little bit further and you have cold, when just before the Vikings came, you had a Roman warm period, and further and further and further back, and then at some point here at Hempstead it was a tropical condition. We know that. Why? Because of the fossils that we're finding all down here. The beautiful fossils like crocodile fossils. Crocodile fossils, alligator fossils, turtle fossils. Yes, the climate was much warmer and now it is warming back up again, but not as much as it was when these creatures were living here. You see, it's clear from the evidence that Earth's climate is in a cycle, on a big cycle as well as many, many smaller cycles within that big cycle. So it's wonderful what these fossils can actually show you. Now we're going to carry on down. We're going to talk a little bit more as we go. I'll do another live video in just a little while as we continue down looking for these fabulous fossils. Another fossil find for today. Come see what it is. Can you spot it? It's coming up. There it is. It's a lovely little bit of fossil turtle shell. You can see the bone quite clearly. Follow for more fossil finds. Did you know that fossils can tell us about climate change? Come see what I mean. We're at the Hempstead Heritage Coast on the Isle of Wight in the UK, and even though it's unseasonably warm for January, it's still pretty cold. And we're finding fossils down here in the shingle. They've been washed down to the cliff behind us by the sea. This is how you find them. You have a careful look along the shingle and, oh, there's a fossil bit of, turtle shell. Now fossils like these can actually tell us a bit about the climate of the past. I mean, think about it. We've just found a bit of turtle shell. Turtles are tropical. And that's not just the only fossils we find here. We also find these things. What is it? This is a bit of crocodile scoot. Crocodiles, they're tropical as well. So what does that tell us about the climate of the past? Well, one thing is for absolutely certain. When these creatures were living here, it was much, much warmer. Earth's climate cycle is a cycle. It goes up and down. All right, well, we've just started heading back. That is the only downside to this location, is the fact that it's sort of 2 miles down here and 2 miles back. So you've got 4 miles to contend with before you even start thinking about fossils and where you want to go to find them. So that is one of the downsides, but never mind. I wanted to just come live and just tell you about one or two small things. So we've discussed about some of the fossils. We've discussed about some of the implications of the fossils with regards to climate change. And we've put out a couple of shorts as well showing some of the fossils. Got a fabulous croc tooth as well. Let me see if I can quickly show you that. This was one of the finds that I'd got from earlier. Beautiful little crocodile tooth. Actually, let's say beautiful little, it's actually quite a large crocodile tooth, one of the largest I've ever found around here. Absolutely stunning preservation. Now, we've just been watching a ship go over the Solent. Now, the Solent is the strait of water that cuts in between the mainland UK and the Isle of Wight. And it looks fairly peaceful at the moment, but it's actually can get a lot of currents. It can get a lot of fast, deep water, and a lot of shipwrecks have to be, or a lot of ships have to be very careful because they can be shipwrecked. And it's quite famous for how down the years the amount of ships that have actually been wrecked here. And so when you're sort of down on the beach walking along, you can really start to see the remains of these shipwrecks, and some of the archaeology is quite fabulous as well. Now, you can find stuff from way back from the Middle Ages that's been shipwrecked down here. Some of the things are very small, things like, you know, broken bottles from the sort of 1700s. You can find lots of bits of metal and bits of ship. But what's really interesting is we didn't quite get down as far as that today, because you have to be very careful with the tides. The tides can cut you off, and I've been cut off down here before and I didn't want that to happen again. So I've started to make my way back. But if you get down a bit further, one of the things you can find is actually a fabulous semi-petrified, semi-fossilized wood from shipwrecks, where the wood has come off of the ship, it's washed up, and started to get buried, and the natural mineralization process has begun to take place. So it doesn't take millions of years in the slightest, it can actually happen quite quickly. You can also find even older archaeology around Boldnor, because there were entire settlements excavated from the Neolithic and other types of settlements as well, including pottery, tools, stone tools, and everything else. And I've actually found stone tools down here before. So it's a wonderful place, both for the geologist, for the fossil hunter, and for the archaeologist. And it's just a great place all round. Got some beautiful fossils, which we'll get home and sort out tonight and shift through and get everything all ready, and do a bit of filming. And watch out for day 3's main video, because we should be able to get that out on time, hopefully. We're trying a few different ways. Just pray that the computer holds up, because we're still having major issues with that. Anyway, God bless. I'll catch you later, and see you for day 4 tomorrow. Catch you later, guys. Alright, going somewhere different today. Going up to the north of the island, to a place called Boldnor Cliff, near Hempstead and Yarmouth. Great fossils, great archaeology, great fun. Let's head straight out there, see what we can find. Alright then, first port of call is to grab some lunch, and then we're going to the garden centre, because I learnt my lesson last time. This particular beach, you need to do a lot of kneeling and crawling along on your hands and feet. So I'm getting some knee pads. Padcock, let's go. Well, here we are on our way to Boldnor. So Boldnor is a section of cliff, really. It's quite well known because a huge amount of archaeology comes out of there, all the way back to what would be generally referred to as prehistoric, all the way to modern day, basically. A lot of shipwrecks and stuff come out of there as well. Where we're particularly heading to, this is all private land, so it's public access, but no driving. So you have to park back there and walk about 2 miles in this direction, and that takes you up to the little tiny village of, little hamlet rather, of Hempstead, and then down on the beach from there. So it's quite a nice walk. Let's get going. All right, well, we're down here on the beach at Hempstead. There's Baldner just starting behind us. You can see the sea behind me here. And what you can see is all of this kind of shingle lying around everywhere. Now, it's this shingle which is our friend, because the sea has done all of the work for us. You can see the start of the cliff just there, and the sea has washed all the clay out, washed all of the fossils out of the clay, and then it's buried them in nice straight lines for us down here along the beach. So let's come down, have a look. Lots and lots of shingle all over the place, and you just have to get down on your hands and knees and slowly scan through everything until you happen to find something. So let's keep looking and see what we can get. Here we go. Now this is the kind of thing that we're looking for. Come see what we found down here. Can you spot it? It's coming up. There it is, just down here. It's a lovely little bit of bone. You can just kind of start to see the structure of that bone inside it. It's quite clear, but look at what it is. It's part of a turtle's carapace or shell. It's a bit of the bone which the keratin then goes on top. It's a tortoise shell or a turtle shell. Nice little fossil find there, and another one for the bag. All right, I've just spotted something. Scan down, scan down, scan down. Can you see it yet? There it is, right there. You can probably start to see some of the bone structure on it. Let's pick it up and have a look. There's the bone structure, right, just underneath there. Turn it over and you've got, it's a bit of tortoise or turtle carapace. Carapace? Oh, that's a shell. So it's fossils like these that can start to give us clues as to what the climate was like when these cliffs were actually being buried. I mean, think about it. This is a turtle shell. Have a think about what that means about what the climate would be like here. Cracking new find here. Come see what I've got down here. An absolutely enormous and very, very beautiful crocodile tooth. Look at that. Again, just another bit of evidence about, hey, it was warmer in the past. There were crocodiles living here. Absolutely wonderful. One of the best that I've ever found, actually. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the fact that we're finding these types of fossils here and what that really means in relation to the climate and climate change of today. So we are obviously in a warming period right now. There's no doubt about that. The climate is warming, things are certainly getting hotter, certainly a lot warmer since the last 200 years, say. But you've got to remember that 200 years ago, we were at the end of the Little Ice Age. 1814 was regarded as the end of the Little Ice Age, because that's the last time that there was a frost fair on the Thames, the last time that the Thames froze over. So it was definitely a lot colder 200 years ago, and it's warming up now. But let's go back even further, because before the Little Ice Age, a few hundred years back, you had the medieval warm period, a global occurrence where everything was much, much warmer. Okay, go back even further and you find that before the Vikings came here, there was another cold spell. So it had got cold, and then it had warmed up for the medieval warm period. It had got cold again for the Little Ice Age, and now it's warming back up. Go back even further, and you find that during the Romans, they were able to bring Mediterranean grapes over here and grow them as far north as the Scottish borders, something you certainly couldn't do today. So the climate had gone from warm to cold, warm to cold, and now it's warming up again. Go back even further and you get to the time when these beds here that you can see behind me at Hempstead were being laid down. We would call them post-flood. That means after Noah's flood, certainly a catastrophe, but this is something that's been caused by huge ice sheets coming down and pushing all of this sediment into place and causing large watery floods to wash down here. Okay, what fossils are we finding? Crocodiles, turtles, all manner of tropical creatures and subtropical creatures and plants. In other words, it was a lot warmer here in the past. In fact, it was a lot warmer than any modern or historical record of temperature and climate. The climate here was tropical when these beds were being laid down. And then what did I say that had actually formed these massive catastrophic beds? Ice Age. So the creatures were living here in a tropical environment when the ice suddenly came on from the north and caused huge amounts of slumping and local flooding to actually produce these beds. The climate went from warm to cold. It then warmed back up and cold and up and down and up and down. In fact, this is sounding a lot like what God told Noah the climate would be like at the end of the flood. It says that God told Noah at the end of the flood that for as long as the earth shall remain, there will be seed time, there will be harvest, there will be summer, there will be winter, there will be cold and heat. So if you want a biblical picture of climate change, you need to get a full picture of the history of the world in light of the Bible. And it goes back to that fact that the climate is a cycle. Cold to hot, cold to hot. And that's exactly the kind of evidence that we see at places here like Hempstead. Well, ships like the one that's just passing us now have to be really careful in these parts, because what this little patch of water is the Solent. That's the strait of water that goes between mainland UK and the Isle of Wight. And it is looking pretty calm at the moment, even though it's fairly windy, but you can have a lot of currents in there. You can have a lot of fast water, and as a result, you can have a lot of shipwrecks. And all up and down here, you can see the results of those shipwrecks, including things like broken and smashed bottles, medieval bottles, and bottles from the 1800s. You find huge, great big bits of sub-fossilized wood, which came from these shipwrecks, where the minerals have started working, and in a very short amount of time they've started to preserve the wood. You can see whole rudders and all sorts of stuff, as well as loads of shipwreck metal that gets washed up all up and down here. So it's a sort of a haven for archaeology as well. And even further back than that, just underneath Baldon the Cliff, they've actually excavated a whole Neolithic and even other types of settlements from all around there. Pottery and tools and all sorts of exciting stuff. So it's a great place to spend the time. It's got pretty cold now. It was sunny and warm earlier, but it's got a lot colder. So I'm starting to head back. So I've got 2 miles. It's the only downside to this is that you do have sort of a 4-mile walk, 2 miles down here, 2 miles back, on top of anything that you want to do fossil hunting. So that mixed with the tides, you can get cut off here very quickly and very easily. So we are just going to start to make our way back now, and don't want to risk getting too wet. Well, it's been a bit of a quieter day today. It's been a little bit of a more chilled day. Didn't get out too much. Had some catch-up stuff to do this morning, and obviously I went out and attended a Zoom church, and then I went to see my friend Jim. Jim lives on the island. He has a fabulous fossil shop, so I went to go and see him and look through some of his collection and pick out a few bits. And we'll be going back there tomorrow before we leave the island, so I'll hopefully get a chance to show you around, but it was nice to catch up with him. And then I thought I'd come down to one of the most local beaches to where I'm staying. This is Yaverland. And Yaverland, all this cliff behind me here is all dinosaur. It's the same well that was down on Brook Bay. And further down there you get to the Carstone, which is a sandstone which doesn't really have much in it, and then you get to the chalk, which you can find stuff in, but it's a lot of hard work to get it out, and it's quite a trek down there. So it was actually quite nice. It's sort of getting late-ish in the afternoon. It's about 3:30 now, but it's nice just to have a sit down, and you see all this kind of loose rubble down here. You just sort of pick up bits and start bashing through it and see what you can find. This is all dinosaur stuff behind me, like I said, but the problem is Yaverland is so over-collected. It's kind of the big tourist beach, and so it's extremely over-collected. Everybody comes down here looking for stuff, and right now most of the rocks, which the dinosaur bones would be kind of gathered up in, like the tide pools and stuff, they're about 4 feet underneath a load of sand, so it's the wrong kind of tides to really come and collect bone. And you can see up here, you know, hardly any water, hardly any of the sea gets up to this, so it doesn't wash a lot of stuff out either. But you do have a lot of this Vectis formation, which is the same stuff that we found our shark fin in, and you also get all of this stuff, which is also full of shells and fossils, and sometimes even something a little bit more special. So I've actually just been bashing through some of these. You just kind of, you know, get a block like this. I mean, it is easier with 2 hands, but if I wedge it there, you get your hammer and you just kind of knock bits off, bit by bit. Get something nice and flat like this. That can be quite useful. You can see there's some lovely fossil shells in there as well. And then you get bits like this. So this is a bit that I split open just a moment ago. So you can see it's full of shells. Lots of lovely shells, tiny shells. But it's this dark stuff up here that really interests me. This is little fish scales. In particular garfish scales. And you can see they've got some more bone and scales and stuff. And sometimes you can find whole bones and sort of disarticulated skeletons and stuff like that. So it's nice just to come and have a sit down, slowly sift through some of these loose rocks, just, you know, sift through some stuff and see what you can find. And quite often you can find something really nice. Whoops, what was that? Oh, there we go, look at that. Lovely little scale, fish scale. Probably something like a garfish or a lepidotes fish scale. So yeah, really nice. I mean, that was just lying there, right? I didn't even have to split it open. It's great. You know, one of the things that we always say is, why do we find so many fossils at Creation Research, or how do we find so many fossils? And there's a few different elements to this. The first thing is, before we ever go out, we find out a little bit about the rocks. Because when you've been collecting as long as I have, or as long as John Mackay has, you do get to work out which rocks are going to have something in and which rocks are not. And so find out a little bit, like, you know, I know these rocks have got stuff in them, I know the rocks down there don't. So you don't bother going and looking down there, you stay up here, right? The second thing is, before we go out to collect any time, even this morning, we always pray. Lord, this is your world, these are your fossils, this is your ministry. Guide us to them, if it's your will. And the Lord has blessed us abundantly with fossils on this trip. No dinosaur bone as of yet, but you know, it's not like it used to be. There used to be masses and masses of dinosaur bone, and there just isn't anymore. It's become so popular to go collecting, so you need a really good storm and really good tides in order to turf stuff out. But what it doesn't mean is when you do find something, it is usually spectacular. So you just have to, you know, fossils are where fossils is. You keep looking. I mean, I just picked up that rock just while I was on camera, and I found a lovely fossil in it. I could spend another hour looking for it and never find another one. You just don't know. So keep looking. So there we go. It's another beautiful day. I actually flicked the news on very briefly last night, and I saw that there's been huge storms up in Scotland, and coming down as far as Manchester, to the point where electricity's been cut out, and we haven't had anything like that down here. It's been beautifully sunny. The worst it's been was yesterday afternoon, where we were down at Hempstead, and it got a little bit windy and a bit cloudy, and so a bit cold then, but it wasn't horrible. And I mean, you could just see from today, like, it's beautiful, clear skies. It's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, it's nice to just have a bit of a relaxing day, because it has been fairly hectic, especially with all the computer issues. Thank you for those who've donated, by the way. We've had a few donations come through for a new laptop, which is sort of desperately needed at the moment. But it's just been nice to just kind of ignore technology for most of the day. You know, spend some time in the Word, go and meet some old friends, spend some time digging around fossils in his shop, have a nice bit of lunch, come out here, just chill, do a little bit of digging. So it's going to be a shorter video today, but you still got to see some fossils, you still got to have a look at some geology. So the plan for the rest of the trip, basically tomorrow we're going back to my friend Jim's, hopefully show you around a little bit, and see some of his fossils, get some of our own fossils, and we might just have about enough time to have a quick nip down to the beach. But the ferry's at 4 o'clock, back to the mainland, and then we head off to the Jurassic Coast. So I'll be at the Jurassic Coast for sort of Monday evening, and then all of Tuesday, and then we head back home on Wednesday. So we should have enough time to do the few bits that we want to do down there and get some footage and see everything. So that should be quite nice. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far, and just nice to have a bit of a chill day today. And I mean, it's a little bit breezy out there, but I'm sort of in a little hollow here, so it's really warm and really sunny and really, really beautiful. And it's just, you know, it's so tranquil. I'm here, I'm surrounded by fossils, I'm doing something that I love. A stunning scenery all around, and you know, you can sit and watch the boats go through the Solent, the big stretch of sea over there. It is just really, really, really beautiful and really lovely. So yeah, keep watching. Thank you for your support. We've had really, really positive comments, by the way, about this whole road trip, and that's been so encouraging. So thank you so much. I want to keep doing these, and at the end of this series we'll do a poll, so you can all vote as to whether you think I should do it again, and how I should do it, you know, whether it's out on YouTube or on Facebook or however you want. So yeah, thank you for being so encouraging. I really do mean that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your financial support as well. Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunset. The sun's about only 30 minutes off setting. It's already looking pretty cool, just out of the corner of my eye. So that's lovely. What a way to end the day, hey? Down on the beach, nice and calm, beautiful fossils, beautiful cliffs. You know, this is why I love doing this work and doing this job. You get to teach people, you get to share truths, you get to share the gospel. At the same time, you also get to dig up dinosaurs and, you know, be down on the beach at times like this. So it is pretty spectacular. And this is why we love taking you out to see the evidence for yourself. One of the things that we're trying to do when I go to Dorset, to the Jurassic Coast, in a couple of days' time, is check out a big field, a big rally field, where I'm hoping later on this year we can have our sort of creation research fossil retreat, where you come and camp and we spend a day in devotions and teaching, as well as actually travelling out and going and digging up some fossils, which would be really good. The other thing which I'm doing is we're getting all of the field trips set up. You know, we're quite blessed here in the UK to be sort of opened back up again to groups and groups coming together. So we're going to try and get a whole list of field trips to take everybody out. So keep watching on that. That should be really good as well, if we can bring some people together and go and show them the real evidence, because there's nothing like being hands-on, going and seeing the real evidence for yourself. Just beautiful. God bless everyone. I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, and we'll see where tomorrow takes us. So, God bless. See you all later. Hello. As you know, if you've been watching the live videos and the catch-ups and so on and so forth, you would know that what I was supposed to be doing today is catching a ferry about now across to the mainland. And as some of the more observant of you will have probably realised, I'm not on a ferry. So did I miss the boat? Well, not quite. I kind of undershot the boat by about 24 hours. It turns out that I am slowly losing my mind, because the ferry does not leave until tomorrow. It leaves tomorrow at 1 o'clock, not today, at 1 o'clock. And what's more, I checked out of my hotel room this morning to now realise that I still had an extra night there. So I shall be going back to the hotel this evening, rebooking back in, and tomorrow at 1 o'clock I will be heading for the mainland on the ferry. Oh dear. Anyway, it means that I'm actually having an extra day doing this, which is good. It means that I will be home on Thursday rather than on Wednesday, like I thought. I don't know why, because I booked all this, so how I've made the mistake I don't know. And everything tallies up as well, which is also strange, because all the dates for the stuff that I've booked tallied up. So I must have had it in my head at some point, but it's obviously gone since then. Anyway, today, as I had to come up to Yarmouth for the ferry anyway, only to realise that it wasn't going, where I am right now is on the western side of the Hampstead Heritage Coast. If you remember, a couple of days ago I was on the west side and we started walking east. I'm now on the we was on the east side and we started walking west. I'm now on the west side, starting to walk east. So we can go have a poke around. The cliffs are a bit more impressive. The tide is actually fairly high, so we can't get around. I'm just trying to find a way down if we can work our way through. And we'll see if we can find some more fossils and stuff. What it does mean is that I've got the rest of the day to do some looking and some hunting, and it also means that tomorrow I'll have the first bit of the day with nothing else to really do, to go perhaps back down to the dinosaur coast, and who knows, maybe even find some dinosaur bone. So we have an extra couple of days which is fun, and everything should all work out fine, because all the bookings seem to work out fine. It's just my head I think partially with the stress of all of the technology failing and everything else, it's got me a little bit confused. But never mind about that. I'm with fossils and the Lord's got a plan and nothing could really be better. So, here we are, here's the way down. So yeah, this is where we're going to be having a look around today. I'll just turn the camera around in a second and show you. So it also means that we get an extra day down at Dorset, which I wasn't expecting, which is good. Because I realised that the accommodation down there had also been booked an extra day in advance. So let me just turn the camera around for you so you can see where we are today. If it works. There we go. So this is where we are today. So we were right round on the other side of that point. In fact, quite a way around the other side of that point the last time, heading towards here. We're now here, we've got some lovely cliffs, lovely beach, lovely stuff to explore. We're going to work our way down this cliff and hopefully not get too stuck. And I'll come back and let you know what I found as we go, and probably do another live or so. And obviously keep an eye out for tonight's episode as well. But yeah, it's always great when things go slightly wrong. Never mind. Catch you later, guys. Thanks for your prayers.
Well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. We're going to get up and get going. Make sure everything's packed up and ready. We made a bit of a mistake. I made a bit of a mistake with the ferry times. It's actually at 1 o'clock in the afternoon rather than 4 o'clock. So I lost a bit of time. Hence why I'm up early, getting everything sorted and ready, making sure everything's ready to go.
Well, as you know from all the past videos, my full comprehension of this week has been around me going home today, or across to the mainland today on the ferry about now. And as you've probably gathered from the scenery, I'm not on the ferry. Have I missed the boat? Not quite. What I've actually done is sort of undershot or overshot the boat by about 24 hours. The boat does not leave until tomorrow at 1 o'clock, not today at 1 o'clock. Somehow everything tallies up, including the accommodation and the accommodation on the other end. So where I got this idea that I was going home today from, I have no idea. I must be losing my mind or something. I booked out of my hotel despite having an entire night left that I didn't realise. So I need to go back and get access, but it's I am slowly losing the plot. Anyway, the good news is I'm back at Hempstead because I had to come up to Yarmouth, which is basically just here, just around the corner. And last time I was on the east side of the Hempstead Heritage Coast. I was on the east side and I travelled from the east side to the west. Today I'm on the west side, the far west side, and we're going to travel from the west to the east, or towards the east at least, having a look at some of the fossils and geology around here. That should be quite fun, and seeing what we find. Low tide is still a bit of a way off, so we've got plenty of time. And we'll have tomorrow as well to possibly go looking for some dinosaurs again, because we'll have tomorrow morning at least, with nothing else really needing to be done. So yeah, I've made a mistake, but thankfully everything kind of tallies out, and I didn't need to stress like I did this morning, but never mind. I think it's just been everything's kind of, you know, how everything started to go a bit wrong with the technology and the computers and everything else. I just began to lose track of time and what I was doing, but never mind. I'm on the beach now, as you can see. We've got some great shingle around, so let's get digging, let's get looking, and yeah, let's see what we can find. Well, we've had a pretty good haul. We're just gonna head back now. It's actually starting to get dark. I hadn't realised how dark it was getting or what the time was, so we've got to try and head back, get back to the hotel. Hopefully they let us back in again, and then we'll actually sort through some of the finds and see what we've got. Right, let's give this a shot. Hello. Yeah, I've made a bit of a mistake, unfortunately. We made it. Oh, what a day. It's gone just a little bit hectic, and I didn't record a huge amount of it, but we're back in the hotel. Same hotel as before. Praise the Lord that we managed to get back in. I mean, it was fine. I still had it booked, you know. I just had to sort it out. But there we go. Back in here. I'm going to do some sorting of the fossils now, which should be fun. Got a lot of good fossils today from the whole Hempstead Heritage Coast. So, yeah, should be good. Let's sort through some of them and some of the bits that we got the other day and see how much we got. Well, I think we've done rather well, actually. Come have a look down and see the kind of stuff that we've got at the moment. This is all of our collection from the 2 days that we spent at Hempstead, along the Hempstead coast. There's some really nice pieces here, some unusual pieces. I'm not entirely sure whether this is a stone or whether it's a bit of bone or what it is. This is a very interesting piece of bone here. It's a very unusual shape. It's a little flint sea urchin fossil. But then we've got some nice sort of unusual bits of bone. So here we have a nice little bit of limb bone, probably from a crocodile. We've got another crocodile bit of scoot here. That's a really nice piece of scoot, big piece of scoot. Up probably from the skull, actually, I think, most likely. We've got vertebrae as well. Crocodile or turtle vertebrae. Lots and lots of nice turtle scoots, and you can see how they all kind of fit together. These individual scoots, how they kind of lock in together. And then what's interesting is when you have the keratin on the top, because this is the bone, right? The shell, the carapace of a turtle is actually part of the skeletal system, as you can see quite clearly, the bone inside there. But when you have the keratin on the top of this, the keratin plates never join the same part of the bone plates. They always overlap it, so you've got extra strength in there. So there's a nice bit of plate there. More turtle there. Some unusual bits, sort of vertebrae bits. I mean, we really do have a lot of stuff in here. There's a lovely big bit of turtle there. More turtle. Crocodile. More crocodile there. More scoot. So basically, I've got to go through and sort this all out. That's a big bit of bone. And kind of start sifting through stuff, organising it into categories, whether it's a crocodile bit or whether it's a turtle bit, and then narrowing it down, because there's two main species of turtle that you can find here. You've got the smooth-shelled ones like this, right, nice and smooth, and you've got the knobbly-shelled ones like this. See the difference there, right? Those are both turtle, and they're different. Again, you can tell the difference between whether it's turtle or whether it's crocodile, because crocodile has these really sort of deep indentations, as you can see on these parts. So they're quite distinctive, but they'll all need to be organised and sorted out. More vertebrae there. Another nice big bit of turtle. I think that's quite unusual. That looks like the shell has actually broken on that. In fact, it has, yes. The shell on this, that's really cool. Right, let's see if we can get this in the light here. The shell on this has actually broken while the creature is still being alive across there. Going that way as well. It's kind of crushed, and you can see how it's actually healed up because it's got this big lump on it. That's really cool. It's actually healed itself while it's still been alive. So that's very cool. So yeah, a really nice amount of finds.
Lots and lots of bone from the last 2 days. Most of this was actually from today, if I'm honest. It was a really good good session today. So yeah, some nice stuff. We're gonna get cracking and sorting. So we'll start sorting this out here and organising it, and then when we take it back to the Creation Research Centre, we'll be able to properly get it all organised and sorted and packed up and labelled and categorised and everything. So yeah, some really nice finds from there. So tomorrow, the plan was essentially what the plan was supposed to be today, except I haven't got to go to my friend Jim's. I've already done that earlier today. So we probably won't be too rushed to get away because the ferry's at 1 o'clock, which means we need to be leaving here by about 11. So I'm probably going to take it fairly easy tomorrow morning. Try not to do anything too stressful or rushed. Take it easy, get across to the mainland, get ourselves sorted, see where we go. So I'll catch you tomorrow. We go. I'm in the car and we're going to go and try again and hopefully make it this time. So the ferry's at 1 o'clock. It's currently 20 to 12, so we've got plenty of time to get down there. It's about a 45-minute drive or so. So we'll get heading out in a minute. Sorry that yesterday's video hasn't gone up. I've had more computer troubles and trying to transfer files across and all this kind of stuff has been a nightmare, and nothing's really playing ball. Finally managed to get it all over this morning and all edited this morning, and you can see down here I've actually got my computer set up in the car running, because I'm hoping that over the next 45 minutes of journey that I'll finish exporting and then I can set it uploading while I'm on the ferry. Who knows how that will go, but we'll give it a shot nonetheless. So yeah, we've definitely got the ferry today. I'm definitely leaving here today. I'll be filming quite a bit, and I want to bring you a few more live videos today, because we're going to be passing some stunning scenery, and we're going to have it in plenty of time to film a lot of that scenery with the daylight. So hopefully that'll be really nice. I'll continue to gather footage as we go. So yeah, let's just get going. All right, folks. Well, we are officially on the Jurassic Coast. Let me show you exactly where we are. Right, here's the UK. Here's the south coast, which is where we've been from. There's the Isle of Wight, where we've come from. We went across to Lymington there, and we've driven all the way down here, down to that little island there. And that little island is called the Isle of Portland. Now, the place where we're going to this evening is over here by Lyme Regis, just there. So we've still got a little bit of a way to go just to get over to there. But this is where we are at the moment, the Isle of Portland. Now, the Isle of Portland has got a special place in my heart, because this is the first place we visited in order to specifically look for fossils. Now, like ever really. In 2012, me and my family took a trip down here to the Isle of Portland in order to collect fossils from the Jurassic Coast. We went all up and down and around the Jurassic Coast, and we stayed here on this island. And this is really where it all properly kicked off for me. You know, it started a lot younger, but this is where it all kicked off. This is where we started collecting stuff. This is where I started putting stuff on display after this trip. This is what inspired me to start the museum project and everything else. It all happened while we were staying here on this island. And this island has got a really long and complex history, as well as a fantastic
and complex geological history as well. I mean, historically on the island, there's a prison up here, there's a military base, there's a battery for the guns, there's quarries up here, there's a lighthouse, there's some really old architecture up here as well. Geologically, it's pretty complex as well, and in particular, this is known for its Portland limestone. Now, the Portland limestone is quite famous as well. A lot of very famous places were built out of Portland limestone. It's been shipped all around the world. It's a very pure limestone and a very, very strong limestone as well. And it's full of fossils. Now, I've brought you to the Heights Isle of Portland Hotel. And the reason I've brought you here is because when this hotel was being built, it actually incorporated quite a lot of the fossils that you find on the island into this building. As soon as you come out of the shelter, it's very windy. I mean, just have a look at this. That's a real fossil, by the way. It's not a cast. It's part of the original quarry limestone. It's a beautiful ammonite fossil. You see the curly-whirly stuff? But have a look in this stuff as well. You can see it's absolutely crammed full of these fossils. So this building stone, which is used all around here, is full of these sea creatures. You saw some of the shells. You saw that great big giant ammonite, the big curly-whirly thing, right? Well, I've got one other cool thing to show you in just a moment, but let's head up to where it's going to be really, really windy and have a look out on the viewpoint. I hope everybody can hear me at the end of all of this, but we'll see. Here we go. We're up here on the viewpoint. Let's turn you around so you can have a look. There we go. So it was down there where I stayed all those years ago. Up there's the battery and the prison and the military base. There's a quarry over there as well. And that long stretch of beach you can see, it looks lovely and sandy from here, but it's not actually sand at all. It's almost all exclusively cobbles. That is Chesil Beach. And it's Chesil Beach which has actually stopped this island from being an island. It's known as the Isle of Portland, and it certainly used to be an island, but it's not anymore. You can see how the water from both sides comes up. Well, the Chesil Beach that's washed up all of that cobbles has actually stopped this from being an island, so you can actually drive straight to it, which is quite useful. But there we go, lots of quarries around here, and all other sorts of wonderful stuff. But it's over here that I really wanted to show you something cool and interesting. Now, this wall that you can see in front of the hotel here is absolutely full of these fossils. I mean, the entire hotel is literally built out of these fossils, right? All sorts of different fossils, but in particular evidence of massive flooding. What are we talking about? Well, curly-whirly ammonite fossil there. Ammonite, by the way, is named after the a pagan god Ammon, who had the body of a man and the head of a sheep, and they thought that its curly-whirly horns looked a bit like the horns of a sheep. There's another ammonite there. Keep moving along. There's another ammonite there. And oh, what's this? You see this here? This is fossil timber. It's fossil wood. It's very, very common around the Isle of Portland, and it's buried exactly and right next to the ammonites that you can see they've incorporated into the wall here. So you've got wood and ammonites. Ammonites are sea creatures, deep sea creatures. Lots more of this. Some wonderful stalactite formation there. More ammonites. More fossil wood. More ammonites. Huge ammonite there. More fossil wood. More ammonites. And then this huge cave type formation as well. Absolutely beautiful. But this is the real key thing just up here. So remember what we've been seeing, that they've incorporated from the local area into this building lots and lots of sea creatures and now fossil wood, including this rather spectacular fossil tree. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. It's an enormous tree. It's absolutely beautiful. It's been preserved incredibly well. It's been semi-reconstructed, but this is essentially how it was found. You can see, I mean, just look at some of the details in this wood, and it's stone, solid stone. So, think about it for a second. Isle of Portland, lots of limestone, very famous for its limestone. You've got lots and lots of sea creatures. In fact, limestone is mostly made up of sea creatures, and buried in there you get these enormous ammonites. Okay, giant sea creatures. They have to be buried quickly. If they're not buried quickly, then they will simply be destroyed. So you've got evidence of very, very rapid fossilization there. And then also you have fossil trees like the one you see behind me. I mean, that is a pretty spectacular fossil tree, and it's not it's not uncommon. It's very common around here to have huge amounts of this fossil timber found out of the quarries from here. So remember, whenever you get land plants and sea creatures buried together, you've got evidence of a flood, and a very big flood at that. And it had to be buried quickly because you've got these enormous sea creatures. In fact, you've got these enormous bits of fossil wood. Now, one thing you know for sure, that tree was buried before it had chance to actually rot away. So you know that it was buried very quickly just by the simple existence of that fossil. It's the same for all the other fossils as well, including these spectacular ammonites like this one. You can see they've incorporated it into the wall. This is the one we saw earlier. It's been beautifully incorporated into the wall. I mean, it's just absolutely delightful. So we could spend a very, very long time wandering around here looking for fossils, but we've got to get a move on. This is one of the places I want to bring people back and do a big field trip, so Lord willing in the future. But for now, we've got to get a move on and get further down the Jurassic Coast. Alright everybody, we're on the way to the ferry. Hopefully for good this time. It was, it's been pretty full on, this whole trip to the Isle of Wight. It's been pretty good, but we've had a good time. There's not, it's had its fair share of troubles, including last night when I couldn't get any of the footage over. And so today's main video is, or yesterday's rather, main video is not only going to go out today, so it gets very confusing. But hopefully they'll all be out later and we'll all be up to date later on. But who knows? So on the way to the ferry, that is at 5 minutes past 1 it leaves. They like to have you there 30-40 minutes ahead of time. It's now nearly 10 to 12, so we've got about the right time. We're about on track, which is good. We just need to get going and hopefully get there in plenty of time with no hold-ups, and then get on to the other side and get going to our destination. We're going to pass some absolutely fabulous scenery on the way, so hopefully we can bring you a load of information about the scenery and some of the geology there as well. Well, so far so good. We're waiting to get on the boat. Well, we did it. We made it. We're back on the mainland. Caught the ferry right. Praise the Lord. Let's go. I'm going to go a slightly longer way round to the Jurassic Coast, because rather than sort of going through the towns and cities and then up and sort of over, I'm going to try and follow the coastline, because I'd like to show you some of the incredible geology that there is along the coastline, down through the Isle of Purbeck and so on and so forth. So let's go see what we can find. Well, we're on our way to a place called the Isle of Portland. The Isle of Portland has got a rather special place in my heart, because it's the first ever place that we stayed specifically to go to look for fossils. It was a trip down to the Jurassic Coast, to the Dorset Jurassic Coast in 2012. It was after this trip that I was inspired to start the museum project. It was after this trip that I really started to get into creation research and working with John Mackay and everything else. And we stayed on the Isle of Portland. And it's got some fabulous geology as well as some brilliant fossils, including some spectacular fossil timber, fossil trees. And if it's still there, and I'm hoping it is, I'm hoping we can go and see a fossil tree that has actually been excavated and put on display at one of the hotels. So we're just starting to get into some of that really typical Dorset landforms. Basically, towards the north of Dorset, you've got the big chalk cliffs, the rolling chalk cliffs, and you also find that to the east of Dorset as well. Moving as you go further west, you get into the Jurassic stuff with all of the clays and the lias and everything else. So what we're kind of driving through now are those Cretaceous chalk downs and sort of the rolling hills as we go. So yeah, let's see what we can find. It's not every day you get to drive around with a massive ammonite next to you. Look at that. Beautiful, hey? We're just passing Maiden Castle, which is one of the largest hill forts in the country. Celtic hill fort. There it is up there. It's absolutely beautiful, huge thing. I don't know how well we can see it through the trees, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place to go and spend some time at. But don't think we have much time right now. One thing that you see everywhere around here are barrows, stone barrows. These are mounds that rise up out of the earth, and they are actually Celtic and older burial grounds. So they can be, they could be Neolithic or Mesolithic, all the way up to Celtic burial mounds. So these stone barrows are littered all throughout this area. It kind of goes up from here in Dorset up into Salisbury, and it's just absolutely full of these incredible amount of archaeology and history. We've just passed the largest hill fort in the country, and it's just full of this Celtic and prehistoric archaeology and architecture. Well, we've come down to the Isle of Portland, where it's very, very windy, because I just wanted to stop off to show you this hotel, Portland Heights Hotel. And the reason I wanted to show you that is because of what they've incorporated into the building. Now, Portland is famous for its Portland limestone, and you can see they've built using some of this limestone here, including all these beautiful seashells. Seashells are really quite common from the Portland limestone, and they've incorporated it beautifully. It's quite famous for its building stone. It's really high quality. But look what else there's incorporated into this. Have a look at that rather fabulous ammonite fossil that they've built into the wall. Absolutely enormous and absolutely beautiful. In fact, you can see in this wall, as we move along, ammonite, lots and lots of sea creatures, and look at the size of some of these things. They're pretty big, so you know for sure that this was buried very, very quickly, this Portland limestone formation. But have a look at what this is. Hey, look, it's some fossil wood, some fossil timber. So you've got sea creatures and you've got wood buried together. Interesting. More ammonites, more ammonites, more ammonites, more ammonites, some fossil wood, some more fossil wood, more ammonites, huge great big ammonite here, and then come have a look at what they've got positioned up over this way. Can you see it? Over in the distance, it's a rather spectacular fossil tree from this very same deposit here at Portland. I mean, just look at it, it's absolutely enormous. And look at some of the details on it as well. absolutely gorgeous details. I mean, you'd almost not know that it was fossil, but it really is a solid piece of fossil wood. It is now solid rock. Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, the point of the fossil trees like these, well, number one, you know for sure that this tree was buried before it had chance to actually rot and decay. Secondly, well, the fact that you've got it buried very quickly next to sea creatures means you have evidence for a massive flooding event. A flood which actually swept over the land, caught up the trees, buried them with the sea creatures, and it had to bury them quickly, otherwise you simply wouldn't get a fossil anymore. So it's things like these which give us excellent evidence as to how these entire island was originally laid down with the Portland limestone. It happened quickly, it had to happen quickly, and it was in a flood which came onto the land, swept up all of the sea creatures, and actually buried them with those land plants as well. So a great piece of evidence from Portland. Well, as much as I would like to spend more time here and actually go do some digging, we do need to get a move on. It is now heading towards 4 o'clock, and it will be getting dark very shortly, within the next hour. And we've got about an hour and a half's drive to get to where we're staying tonight. So we do want to get a wiggle on. But I'm hoping to come back here in the future and come and lead a field trip here. Because who knows, that might be a way that we can uncover something really spectacular. So watch this space. We've made it. We're just slightly along from Lyme Regis at a place called Seaton. Just ever so slightly to the west of Lyme Regis. This is where we're spending the next couple of nights while we head out to Lyme Regis tomorrow and go and do some exploring. So yeah, catch you tomorrow, guys, and who knows when this video will be out there. It may be tonight on time, or it may be tomorrow. Catch you later. Alright, we're trying this again. If you didn't catch the last live, for some reason my front camera isn't working in the slightest, but never mind. I still wanted to show you what I've found. This is going to be probably the first of a few live videos that we do today. But come have a look at what we've just split open down here. A rather fabulous bit of fossil timber. You see the wood in the middle there? Absolutely lovely. It came from a much bigger bit, as you can see. So we've just split this one open. A rather beautiful bit of fossil wood. We'll carry on looking and searching because we are actually looking for dragons today. We're hoping to find some giant ichthyosaurs or the sea dragons. It'd be lovely to get some of that bone, but the bone is very rare. So we have no idea whether we'll actually be able to find any, or if any will actually turn up as we go. But we'll keep on heading down in that direction and see what we can find. We're on Charmouth Beach and we've just found a fossil. Come see what I've got. This is how I found it. You have to hit the top very carefully in order to break it open. Split it open and... hey, look at that fabulous bit of fossil timber wood. A great find. Follow for more. So I was just walking down Charmouth Beach and I spotted a rather unusual looking rock. Come see what you think. Here it is. It just looks like a normal, ordinary rock, doesn't it? But this rock is rather more exciting if you flip it onto the other side. Come see with me. Well, would you look at that? It's a rather spectacular ichthyosaur vertebrae section. And they're all still even joined together. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little one on the end. 4.5, plus a nice little bit of rib as well. Now, ichthyosaurs were large marine reptiles, often referred to as swimming dinosaurs. In fact, the first ever people to find these named these sea dragons. Yes, we've been looking for sea dragons, we've even found some sea dragons. This is a rather wonderful set of ichthyosaur vertebrae finds. Follow for more content as we look for more fossils. All right, folks, hello again. I thought I'd come and show you some of our finds. It's been some of the best finds that I've ever made down here. It's been really, really spectacular. So we're at Charmouth. These are all of the cliffs that you can see behind us. This is where all the fossils come out of. And we've been finding some spectacular things, including this rather incredible set of ichthyosaur vertebrae. I mean, this is some of the best that I've ever found down here. A beautiful set of vertebrae. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 and a little bit on the end there, and you can even see it's got some of the ribs still attached to it there as well. So we've got a fabulous sea dragon find. Oh, sea dragon? Yeah, when they started collecting these fossils from here, you see this is a large ichthyosaur, often referred to as a swimming dinosaur, even though they're technically not dinosaurs. But they would collect these up and down here, these large marine reptiles, and they referred to them as sea dragons. You can still go to the Natural History Museum and see the Hawkins collection. The Hawkins collection was mostly made up of these creatures from here at Charmouth and Black Ven, which were collected by Mary Anning, put into the collection and ended up at the Natural History Museum. And you can see still written on there was sea dragon written on them. You see, dragon was just the name that people used for dinosaurs before they invented the name dinosaur, which wasn't until 1841 by Richard Owen. And Richard Owen called them dragons before and after he actually invented the name. So a wonderful sea dragon set of bones there. Okay, so sea dragons are obviously swimming creatures, and we've got our fair share of swimming creatures from around here. Lots and lots of ammonites as well, as some fabulous creatures, including, we've got another bit of ichthyosaur rib bone just there as well. So a lovely bit of dinosaur bone. So lots and lots of swimming creatures, lots of ammonites, the curly whirly ones, lots of other things. And then we end up with this right here. A lovely bit of fossil wood. Now, fossil wood and sea creatures, you're looking at evidence of a flood. Wherever you get sea creatures and wherever you get land plants buried together, you're looking at evidence of a flood. What is a flood? A flood is water where water shouldn't be. Right? We've said this many, many times. If you end up, bursting your kitchen tap and the water spills out all over the floor, you've got a flood in your kitchen because the water belongs in the sink and not on the floor. It's quite simple. So you're looking for evidence of water being where water shouldn't be when you're looking at evidence for a flood. What about the rocks here that you can see sort of behind us? What evidence do they show? Well, number one, they are cram-packed full of fossils. They're absolutely full of marvellous fossils from all around here. So one thing you know for sure, whenever you find fossils, you know that it's been buried very quickly. It simply has to be buried quickly because fossilization has got nothing to do with time, but everything to do with the process. So if you want to get fossils buried in these rocks, you need to bury these rocks very, very quickly indeed. That's point one. So these rocks here were buried quickly. How were these rocks buried? Well, they've been buried with seashells, they've been buried with giant swimming creatures like the ichthyosaur, they've been buried with land dinosaurs like the Scelidosaurus, and they've also been buried with land plants. So you are definitely looking at evidence of a big flooding event. A flooding event which has swept over the land, caught up all of these plants and these land creatures, brought them into the sea and buried them very, very quickly indeed. No doubt about it. Okay, how big are these beds? Well, we're on the Jurassic Coast. Now, did you watch our creation conversations last week? We dealt with the letter J, including the word Jurassic. Jurassic? The rocks just like the ones in the Jura Mountains. You see, these rocks here are not just found here on this location, and you can see they kind of go all the way behind me. There's Golden Cap down at Seatown, and they go all along this Jurassic Coast, so it's a fairly big flood even if it just covered this south part of the UK. But they don't. It goes up to Wales, it goes up to Yorkshire, it goes up to Scotland, it goes all the way over to the rocks in the Jura Mountains and around the world. The flood that produced these Jurassic rocks here was the same flood that produced the rest of the Jurassic rocks all over the world, and they all exhibit the same evidence. They're all buried with lots and lots of land plants and marine creatures all buried together. So we've learnt quite a few things on this trip, and we've covered quite a lot of ground, including how fast fossils form and everything else. But just remember, our most spectacular find for today is this wonderful set of ichthyosaur vertebrae. And it's by no means the only ichthyosaur find that we've made today. If I just pull out my little bag here, we've got another little one just here, lovely little set. And we've got one that I excavated out of the rock. It just needs a bit of work cleaning it up, but there's a nice one there as well. We've done pretty well. It's been one of the best finds from this area that I've ever done. We've got a whole rucksack full of rocks and fossil plants and fossil trees and ammonites and everything else. So it's sort of it's just past 3 o'clock. I've got to get all the way back down there to Charmouth and back to my hotel, but I'm coming to Lyme Regis tomorrow for our very last day of the road trip. So we'll catch you later, and hopefully again the video will be out this evening on time, and we'll show you some more of our wonderful fossils. Folks, we are properly on the Jurassic Coast now. We are headed to Charmouth. Just driven through some beautiful scenery. We're going to go down to Charmouth. We're going to see what we can find. There's some wonderful fossil shops there. There's some wonderful fossils on the beach to be found. So let's go get exploring. Let's go get digging. Let's go find some fossils. Let's go explore some geology. But in particular, we want to find some dragons. We've done really well, people. We've done really well. I haven't had this good collecting in a long while. We started over there at Charmouth, just slowly walked back down to this end of the beach. We're sort of halfway between Charmouth and Lyme Regis. We're at a place called Black Ven. And we've found some good stuff. Found some very good stuff. Come see the latest thing that I've just found. I just dug this up out of the rock. This is, you can see it's fully encased in rock, but it's a lovely bit of vertebrae. That's actually how I found it, just that little bit of bone just there. And so I've spent ages carefully excavating it, and that'll clean up even nicer at home. So a nice little ichthyosaur vertebrae. Now, ichthyosaurs are what commonly referred to as swimming dinosaurs, even though they're not technically dinosaurs. And in the Victorian times, when they were first discovered, they were referred to as sea dragons. And you can still go to the Natural History Museum in London. You can still see the Hawkins collection, Thomas Hawkins, Mary Anning, who famously collected ichthyosaurs, and the first ever ichthyosaurs and these swimming marine reptiles from this very location, sold a lot of her collection to either Thomas Hawkins or to Richard Owen. Richard Owen went on to found the Natural History Museum, and Hawkins ended up donating most of his collection to the Natural History Museum as well. And so you can go to these Victorian specimens in the Natural History Museum, and you can see written in big black ink on the label is sea dragon. So yes, dinosaurs and dragons are one and the same. They used to be referred to as dragons before the name dinosaur was invented in 1841. But that's not the only bit of sea dragon that we've found today. We've actually had quite a remarkable haul. If I go into my bag here, we've got this rather very sweet, beautiful little one just here. Lovely little vertebrae. And then we've got this rather spectacular chunk of vertebrae just here. You can see that they are all still articulated. I mean, look at that. That is just absolutely fabulous. A fabulous piece of ichthyosaur vertebrae. So we have one here. Absolutely beautiful. You can still see all of the detail. It's a little bit squashed, but it's still very, very nice. And then we've got two, which is the one that I just excavated. Still pretty nice. Needs a bit of work cleaning up. And then we've got this stunner right here. I mean, just you look at that. It's even got the ribs still coming off of it. I mean, it is just absolutely phenomenal. Look at that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit of one where one would have attached to just there. So 4 and a bit, plus a bit of rib. Some more bone down the base there. Absolutely gorgeous piece of bone. So let's talk geology. Black vein behind me. This is all part of the Jurassic lias. Lias is Cornish for layers. No, layers and layers and layers, layers and layers and layers. And there certainly is layers and layers and layers behind me. How did it form? Well, I studied paleobiology. I'm now studying paleobiochemistry. And one of the things that I was taught is that you're supposed to come out to a location like this, look in the cliffs, sort out the fossils and create an interpretation of an environment. So we have lots of marine creatures. Therefore, this is a marine environment. Is it as simple as that? Well, not quite, because look what else we're finding here. Big bits of fossil wood. It's a lovely piece of fossil wood, really nicely detailed. Wood, trees, they grow on the land, they don't grow in the sea, so maybe this is a bit of driftwood. The problem is with that is that there is an enormous amount of this fossil wood that comes out of these cliffs here. Alright, let's deal with fossil burial 101. What we have here are layers and layers and layers of rock. And in these layers and layers of rock are fossils. Now, first off, the very fact that you have got fossils in here and the very fact that they are so beautifully preserved in these rock layers means one thing for sure. These were laid down quickly, because you simply cannot take time in order to make a fossil, because you'll never end up with a fossil. Fossilization has got nothing to do with time, everything to do with a process. Get the process right and it happens really quickly. I mean, if you want a fossil like this one that I've just spotted down here, beautiful ammonite fossils by the way, they're lying all over the beach around here. If you want a fossil like this, it has to be buried quickly. If you don't, then time will simply destroy your creature long before you ever have a chance to actually fossilize it. So step one, these rock layers had to be buried very quickly in order to bury the creature, preserve the creature, fossilize the creature before it has time to be destroyed. It also needs to be buried deep enough so that you don't end up having, worms and things come down and destroy it. It's got to be in an oxygenless environment as well, because bacteria can destroy it if it's full of oxygen. So you've got to get some quite special situations in order to bury these very quickly. What kind of thing would have actually done that? Well, there's several things that can do that, eruptions, flooding, stuff like that. What about in the case of these rocks? What evidence do we see? Well, the very fact that you've got wood and land plants buried next to land dinosaurs like the Scelidosaurus. There's a fabulous fossil Scelidosaurus that's been found here, and it's up on display in the Heritage Centre, which is sadly closed at the moment. But you've got land plants and land dinosaurs buried next to sea creatures like the curly-whirly ammonites, and giant sea creatures like the great big ichthyosaurs. I mean, we're just finding a few little bones, but entire skeletons have been collected from these cliffs behind me. All right, land plants, land creatures buried next to sea creatures. You have evidence of a flood. I mean, think about what a flood is. A flood is water where water shouldn't be. I mean, if your kitchen sink, overflows and it runs down onto the floor, you've got a flood in your kitchen, because the water's supposed to stay in the sink and it's not supposed to go all over the floor. You've got a flood in your kitchen. So you're looking for evidence of water where water shouldn't be. Here we have evidence of water which has swept over the land, caught up the land plants, caught up the land creatures, and buried them right next to sea creatures. And this is not, this is the norm. This is not unusual. It's found in abundance here, massive evidence for huge flooding events. Okay, so these cliffs were definitely made in a flood. You can see behind me just there, you've got Golden Cap down near Seatown, running all the way up to here, onwards into Lyme Regis and beyond. Evidence of huge flooding. So this was a fairly big flood, but it goes much bigger than that, because this is the Jurassic lias. Did you catch that word? Jurassic. Now, if you would have watched our creation conversations last week, you would have known what that word meant. Jurassic, the rocks like the ones in the Jura Mountains. Nothing to do with millions of years, nothing to do with evolution, but it does actually help you understand the size of these rock beds and also how big this flood was that laid these things down. See, these are exactly the same rocks that you find in the Jura Mountains. They're the same rocks that you find all over the world, and they all have evidence of flooding, being buried by a flood. This creatures, land creatures, sea creatures mixed together, layers upon layers upon layers. This was not a flood that just covered this little local area. This was a global flood for sure. This is, of course, the downside to collecting fossils. You've got to get them all back, and the rock weighs quite a bit. When you have several of them in your backpack, it can drag you down rather. But not to worry, we've got a not too bad a hike back, so we'll get going. And when we're back, what I want to do is pull out some of my fossils that we found and just recap some of the points from what we can learn from them. Oh, it's pretty hefty and also pretty difficult underfoot as well, because it's all sort of, you know, these big cobbles and stuff, so you've got to watch where you're putting your feet and also try and keep an eye out for anything new that you might have missed on the way down, so that doesn't help either. But yeah, let's get back to the car, have a look at one or two bits, and I think it's time to go get some food, because it's sort of 3:30 and I haven't eaten anything today, so I ought to get some food before I start feeling a bit dizzy and faint. All right, good day everyone. I have a new hat, by the way. What do you think of that? I actually just picked it up in a little shop just down the road in Lyme Regis. I've been to many times before. It's great fun to go there. Anyway, we're about to head for home. We came down to Lyme Regis. I was hoping to go out and do a bit of digging, but the tides just aren't quite right, and we haven't got enough time to wait for them. I was hoping to go into a couple of fossil shops. In particular, there's one fossil shop which is spectacular. It's got some brilliant stuff, but it was closed, and I tried calling and I couldn't get through, so never mind. I did pop into one small fossil shop. That's where I picked up these bits just here. Some nice geological maps. In particular, this one is a copy of William Smith's geological map, the first geological map really ever made, and another standard one and some other nice interesting bits. And then I actually went to a bookshop. It's a bookshop that I've been to before, and we actually got our family Bible from that bookshop. When me and Sarah Ann got married, we wanted to have a signed Bible, and that's where we actually got it from, an old High Victorian Bible. So that was nice. Picked up a few interesting books. What have we got here? We've got the Introduction to Ecological Biochemistry. That's nice. The Paleontology and Stratigraphy of the Lower Part of the Upper Kimmeridge Clay in Dorset. We've got the Proceedings of the Geologists Association from 1996. That's nice and interesting. But I've got one particular book which I was really pleased to have found. You can see it here. It's Paley's Natural Theology Illustrated. Now, William Paley was a philosopher and an apologist, and he wrote this book in order to sort of prove that not only there was a God, but also that God created. And he wanted to show how studying science, back then natural theology or natural philosophy was regarded as the sciences. He wanted to show how science and natural philosophy, how science actually fit together beautifully. It was very influential. Charles Darwin later on saw this book as a sort of his big nemesis. He had to go and try and prove it otherwise, that you could have natural philosophy without natural theology. But this was a really influential book, a really influential apologetics book as well, and it even was still in the curriculum all the way through the Victorian times in places like Cambridge and Oxford. Now, this is actually a later edition with study notes by two other people. William Paley, this was his last book that he ever published, and he published it in the very early 1800s. This edition is from 1836, so I'm really pleased to have found a really nice edition. But let's have a little read of the first ever chapter here, see what his argument is. Natural Theology, Chapter 1, The State of the Argument. In crossing a heath, supposed I pitched my foot against a stone and were asked how that stone came to be there. I might possibly answer that, for anything I knew to the contrary, it had lain there forever. Nor would it perhaps be easy to show the absurdity of this answer. But suppose I had found a watch on the ground, and it should be inquired how the watch happened to be in that place. I should hardly think of the answer which I had before given, that for anything I knew the watch had been there, and had always been there. Yet why should this answer not serve for the watch as well as for the stone? Why is it not as admissible in the second case as in the first? For this reason and no other, that when we come to expect the watch, we perceive what we could not discover in the stone, that its several parts are framed and put together for a purpose, e.g., that they are so formed and adjusted as to produce motion, and that motion so regulated as to point out the hour of that day, that if the different parts had been differently shaped from what they are, and of different size from what they are, or placed in any other manner, or in any other order than in which they are placed, either no motion at all would have been carried on the machine, or none which would have answered the use that is now served by it. To reckon up a few of the plainest of these parts and all their officers, all tending to one result. He goes on to describe the watch and make the very, very important point that if you're looking for evidence of something being created in the world around you, when you're studying the world around you and you're looking for evidence of something being created, you need to look for something that has been designed. And this is something we talk a lot about at Creation Research, this whole bit of evidence for design. What is a design? If an object has got properties that do not come from the materials that it's made of, then that object has been designed. In the case of the watch, it has properties, i.e. it tells the time, and William Paley goes into great detail to talk about how it, tells the time. It has properties, telling time properties that do not come from the materials that it's made up of, not even the individual parts, which are also designed. It's even more complicated than that. Therefore, the watch has been designed. Whereas a stone lying on the ground hasn't been designed. It's just lying on the ground. It can be formed by natural processes. And William Paley makes the still very valid point that if you want to translate that watch into something like a living being, like a human being or life or plants, there is overwhelming evidence for design and no doubt about it at all. So this is a rather lovely little addition to our library collection at the museum collection at Creation Research UK. Really pleased about getting hold of that. Now, if you look at the title of this video, you'll notice one other name mentioned. We've dealt with William Paley. Who's the other person? Mary Anning. Mary Anning lived in Lyme Regis. In fact, she lived just over there. There's now a museum on the site of her old house. She was a very poor person. She had to really sort of help raise money for the family after her father passed away. She'd go down collecting little curiosities on the shore, what we now call fossils, and sell them. In fact, she was the first person to discover the ichthyosaur. Remember the little vertebrae that we found yesterday, the little backbones? The large swimming dinosaur-like creature, the large marine reptile? She was the first one to actually discover this and sold the first one to Richard Owen. And then she sold others to Richard Owen, who then went on to found the Natural History Museum. She sold some to Thomas Hawkins, and they went into his private collection. He published a book called The Book of Great Sea Dragons. Yes, you see, before the word dinosaur was invented in 1841, everybody referred to these great beasts as dragons. To them, they were the great dragons of the old. They were the same dragons that are mentioned in scripture. They're the same dragons that used to be alive, the ones that are now regarded as mythology. And it wasn't until Darwin's theory of evolution was accepted that dragons moved into the period of mythology. Now, you've got records of people like William Fox, William Buckland, Richard Owen, and Mary Anning all discussing together the great dragons of the old and going and helping dig these things up. Now, Mary Anning was also a devout Christian, and as far as we can see from her work, even though she was sort of accepted partially by her sort of male peers, and she was certainly respected by them. She never went along with Darwin's theory of evolution or the idea of millions of years. She believed in the Bible from the very beginning. And it's wonderful when you come down here and you see all of this scenery all around us. You go walking down, you can really get hands-on with all of the evidence for yourself. Now, we are running out of time. We need to get headed for home soon, and I'll hopefully catch you later. But I want to share one last exciting thing with you. One last very exciting thing. This morning, I have been down to a large campsite with some great facilities, and we have booked and we are able to hold our first ever Creation Research UK fossil hunting retreat here in the UK, down here on the beautiful Jurassic Coast. So you will be able to come down and join us for a whole week of fossil hunting. We're going to have some seminars, we'll have devotions, we'll have teaching, we'll have people like John Mackay. If he can't be in here in person, he'll certainly be Skyping in live to answer questions and do presentations. We're going to try and get some other speakers from some other organisations here as well. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful time. Watch this space. More details coming very, very soon. Goodbye, everybody. God bless. Pray for me that we have a safe journey as we travel, and I will catch you a little bit later and hopefully get a video out this evening, but who knows what time I'm going to get home. But goodbye. God bless. We'll catch you later. Well, we're at Lyme Regis. Unfortunately, the tides are not ideal, but I did get to stop off in one of the fossil shops, one of the little ones. I wanted to stop off at one of the big ones, but unfortunately it was closed, so didn't get to do that today. Pasty lunch. So, we're just about at the end of our road trip. We've seen a lot of geology. We've seen a lot of fossils. We've had a lot of fun. I mean, just looking out over the scenery now, I really do sort of get why I love this so much. So just around the corner is Charmouth. We're at Lyme Regis. That's Charmouth if you go towards the west. Then you get to Golden Cap. There it is there with its Golden Cap. Keep going and you get to Ype, Burton Bradstock, and then eventually if you keep going, there's the Isle of Portland where we were the other day. You see how sloping that is? I mean, the geology and the scenery is just amazing, so who wouldn't want to travel around and do some research and see the scenery and get involved? I mean, it's been exhausting, but it's been well worth it, especially with the fossils. Especially with the fossils. All right, well, we're back in the car now. I've got a new hat, by the way. It's the right way around. Get it the right way around. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Looking good. I picked that hat up in a shop down that I've been to several times before down in Lyme Regis. It's a shame that we couldn't get out onto the beach, but never mind about that. We still managed to, you know, have a look around some shops. I've got some great maps, some various geological maps, and this one in particular is William Smith's map, one of the first ever geological maps of the UK. So I've got a few nice things, which is good. And I also popped into a bookshop, which I've also been to before. In fact, I picked up our family Bible there when I bought it just before I got married. I picked up a few other interesting books: An Introduction to Ecological Biochemistry, The Proceedings of the Geologists Association from 1966, and The Paleontology and Stratigraphy of the Lower Part of the Upper Kimmeridge Clay in Dorset, also by the, well, actually that one's by the British Natural History Museum. But in particular, this bookshop specialised in old books. I also picked up this one here. Can you see it there? Paley's Natural Theology, illustrated. Interesting. You see, Paley had published his book just a few years before this one was actually brought out, and it was regarded as one of the most influential philosophical and apologetic books of its time, and it was part of curriculum in places like Oxford and Cambridge well into the Victorian period. Towards the end of the Victorian period. There's several modern translations of this now, but this one is one of the oldest ones that I've ever come across. It's not quite an original, but it was published just about 20 years or so after William Paley had died, and he published this book, was the last one before he died. And it was very influential. It was especially influential in Charles Darwin's life, because he saw this as sort of a nemesis that he had to try and prove wrong. That's how he kind of gave birth to his sort of Darwinian evolutionary theory. Well, just listen to what he says here. This is William Paley, Chapter 1, The State of the Argument. In crossing a heath, supposed I pitched my foot against a stone, and were asked how the stone came to be there. I might possibly answer that, for anything that I knew to the contrary, it had lain there forever, nor would it perhaps be very easy to show the absurdity of this answer. But supposed I had found a watch on the ground, and it should be inquired how the watch happened to be in that place, I should hardly think of the answer which I had before given, that for anything I knew, the watch may have always been there. Yet why should this answer serve for the watch, not this answer serve for the watch as well as the stone? Why is it not as admissible as the second case as the first? For this reason and no other, that when we come to inspect the watch, we perceive that several parts are framed and put together for a purpose, i.e. they are so formed and adjusted as to produce motion, and that motion so regulated as to the point of the hour of that day, that if the different parts had been differently shaped from what they are, of a different size from what they are, or placed in any other manner or in any other order that in which they are placed, either no motion at all would have carried in the machine, or none which would have answered the use that is now served by it. In other words, his point is, if you want to look for evidence of whether something has been created, you need to look for something that's been designed. And this is something we talk about lots at creation research. We talk about lots about how do you know whether something's designed. If the end product, the watch, has got properties which do not come from the source parts, i.e. the bits of metal, you are looking at evidence for design. A rock has no special things to it, no special things lying around, therefore it's a natural formation. But the watch has been created. And William Paley is going to then use his watch analogy and switch it on to all living things to say, hey, look, these things have been created. It's still a very valid argument today, and it's nice to have a book which was originally published in the very early 1800s, and this particular edition was published in 1836, which actually talks about this design argument. Well, it's about time that we head for home. I'll try and catch you a few more times as we go, but yeah, it's been a good trip so far, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, so let's hope and pray that we have a safe journey home. All right, well, we've made it here, back to Sam's house.
Surprise!
There we go, yes. So Sam, you've got some things for us.
I do. I've got lots of lovely things which will be donated to the museum project.
Great stuff. Got one or two of them.
Right, okay. So you probably recognise this from Creation Conversations. There we go.
Hey, I recognise that, yeah. Lovely little ichthyosaur vertebrae.
There you go.
Great stuff.
Major jellies are the one you found.
That was quite good.
Right, and in here as well, got some toothies. Look at that.
Lovely tooth.
We'll be on the wrong receiving end of that, I'll tell you that now. Beautiful.
Great stuff. And Sam, you were just saying a minute ago, what do you actually want with these fossils in particular?
Well, I want these to be part of the museum project, and I want people to be able to touch them and handle them. I mean, the problem is with like the Natural History Museum, you go in, you see everything's behind glass, and they say, it's so fragile, it's millions of years old, you know, don't touch it, you know, it's so precious. And no, I mean, kids want to touch it, adults want to touch it, you know, come down to the Creation Museum, you'll get to touch dinosaur bones, I guarantee you.
Yeah, and that's something that both me and John have had a strong belief about for a long time. Stuff needs to be hands-on. That's why we do the field trips. That's why we do that. That's why we have this emphasis on the museum project. So yeah, come down to the museum project, and you may have even been able to see some of Sam's finds. So catch you later.
See ya.
Well, here we go. It's starting to get dark. We've still got about 3 hours of travelling left before we get home. I'm actually stopping off at our good friend Sam Jenkins. Sam's a regular on our creation conversations, so you should know who he is. But I'm actually stopping off to pick up some fossils that he's very kindly donating to the museum project. So I'll get a bit of a break there. But I just wanted to stop to reflect on what we've done on this trip. And, you know, I'll come out tomorrow and do another live video or something, just so we can sort of recap everything. But I just wanted to get these thoughts out. It's been very tiring, put it that way, and exhausting trying to keep track of everything, including where I'm supposed to be and what time I'm supposed to be there, as well as all of my other work and everything as well. And I was down here to do some work anyway, but it's been good fun, and we've had so much encouragement from you guys, and I really do appreciate that, so thank you for that. It's been really encouraging to see the comments, see people saying what they're saying. So really, as far as I'm concerned, it's been a huge success. It's been great fun. We've learnt a lot. We've had some good fossil finds. I mean, that's all that I could really ask for. Plus, it's clearly been enjoyed by you, and that's really good. So the question now remains, do you want to see another one? Who knows where it will be? Maybe it'll be to Yorkshire, or to Scotland, or to, I don't know, anywhere. Who wants to see another one? Not only who wants to see another one, but who would be willing to support another one? I don't quite know how we'll do that, whether we do a fundraise or whether we do a membership thing. Maybe that would work. But, you know, we want this to be as accessible to as many people as possible, and we want to keep doing these. So is this the kind of stuff that you want from us? And if it is, can you support us in it? We'll put up a poll and we'll do a broadcast tomorrow, and we'll talk about it more on Friday as well as we go. So yeah, that's good. Thank you all for your encouragement. Thank you all for your support so far. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you soon.